Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Elgin. And I'm going to call this meeting to order at 4 p.m. Adoption of the agenda, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby adopts the agenda as presented.
Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Navakis, Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest? Seeing none, but if not, at the time. So we go straight to the Committee of Adjustment. Refer to CAO agenda. Okay. So we go to the Committee of Adjustment. Yeah.
So apologies that was not added into the agenda. It was on it's on as a separate agenda. Moving forward, it will be completely separated with the Committee of Adjustment prior to the council meeting. But for this one, it must remain within the meeting. So we're going to go straight to the Committee of Adjustment prior to the public meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to call that to order. At 4:03.
Recommendation is that West Elgin Committee of Adjustment convenes at 4:03 p.m. to consider two applications for minor variance pursuant to the Planning Act.
Mover, please. Councillor Navakis. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. That was the adoption of the agenda. Yeah.
Sorry, that was the call to order. I can read the recommendation for
Please.
adoption of the agenda.
Please.
That West Elgin Committee of Adjustment hereby adopts the agenda for January 25th, 2024 as presented.
Okay, a mover, please. Councillor Denning. Seconder. Councillor Statham. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. So we're going to pecuniary interest on that same. Adoption of the minutes, sorry.
That West Elgin Committee of Adjustment hereby adopts the minutes of the December 21st, 2023 minutes as presented.
Okay, a mover, please. Councillor Navakis. Seconder. Councillor Statham. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest? And seeing none? The purpose of the meeting, please.
The purpose of the public meeting of the West Elgin Committee of Adjustment is to allow the presentation of two applications for minor variance and to allow interested members of the public an opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regards to these applications. Written comments must be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the Committee of Adjustment's decision on a particular application, they are to provide their name and mailing address to the Secretary Treasurer at clerk@westelgin.net. This will also entitle you to be advised of possible local planning appeal tribunal hearings in the event the decision of the application is appealed. Notice was sent via regular mail on January 12th, 2024 to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties and to agencies requiring notice.
Okay, so we go to 6, minor variance, D13 7-2023. Robert, could you speak on this one, please?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to everyone. The application in this particular instance is located on Furnival Road, 12450 Furnival Road is the address. The property back in 2023 was brought forward to council for approval of an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. The zoning bylaw amendment was to permit a combination of residential development, both townhouses and semi-detached, primarily townhouses. There'll be a total of 2 semis with 4 units in them, and then another 32 townhouse units. This subdivision or development is being done on a private road, and will eventually go through a plan of condominium process for the sale of the individual units. I was going to say the lands were just outside the settlement area. However, in discussions when the official plan amendment was circulated to the county planner for consideration, there was some discussion on the approach that had been taken to leave it outside the settlement area. They felt that since it was a minor addition to the settlement area, they would prefer to see it in rather than out, which we were not concerned one way or the other. It's in the settlement area. That's great, and the county agreed with it. There wasn't any additional support that was required. That was done at their request. So those lands are now included within the Rodney settlement area, which simplified at least one thing. It eliminated the need for the to adhere to the county road setback, which actually helped in this particular instance. The reason for the minor variance, two of the minor variances, is based on the fact that when the development was first brought forward, they thought that the lot was deeper than what it was. They may have not known that there had been a road widening taken many years ago. Furnival Road in that particular stretch is much wider than the standard 66 feet. So that took land on both sides of the road back many years ago. Essentially what that did was kind of pinched the development, and in order to abide by the setbacks that we had originally established based on the placement of the buildings and on the site plan that was presented to council, they came forward and requested a minor variance. The first one was for a front yard setback. We had set it at 12 meters. Again, that was based on the setback on the site plan that was presented at the time. They're looking for a reduction down to 9 meters. The second reduction was in the rear yard. Originally, it was shown as 6 meters. They're requesting a reduction to 5.5. This really only applies to 2 of the units on the outside corners. The rest of the sort of internal units will comply with the 6 meters. But because of a kind of a change, I guess, in how houses, semis, towns are being built, a lot of homeowners are wanting not your typical deck or open porch or patio. They're looking for something covered, and you'll see a lot of new houses when you drive through new subdivisions will quite often have a covered patio at the back. In order to accommodate this, right now you are allowed in the West Elgin bylaw to encroach a total of 2.5 meters into the rear yard setback, but that is only for a deck or a patio. The second you put a roof over it, it then becomes part of the dwelling. So they've also requested relief from a section in the bylaw that would grant them the ability to encroach that same 2.5 meters, but it would allow for the porch itself to be to cover it with a roof, unenclosed, but with a roof over it. The 4 tests have been applied to each of the variances, and it's my professional opinion that they comply with each of those tests. As the clerk mentioned, the application was circulated to the neighbors. There has been no comment received up to this point, or questions or concerns expressed with the requested variances. There was a little back and forth initially with the county because of county road setbacks, but again, since the lands have been brought into the settlement area, that actually eliminates the need in our bylaw to comply with that, and there was no further concerns expressed by the county. The Lower Thames was circulated on this for comment. They were as part of the original application, but each time we bring an application forward, we circulate them. I did not have any comment back from them until the day after I put this application or the report forward. Unfortunately, it was already done. It was already on its way to council or the committee. I didn't receive any concerns from the Lower Thames. They simply expressed that they'd acknowledged the application and had no objections to it. The variance is going forward as requested. In terms of our new alignment with the strategic priorities, this is in alignment with economic development, ensures for a strong economy that supports growth and maintains a lower cost of living. This will provide a nice alternative in town for residents to have smaller units on a more affordable basis. And with that said, that unless there's questions from the public or council, that is all I have.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the committee? Seeing none, could I have the recommendation? Oh. Any from the public? Seeing none. A recommendation, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Robert Brown Planner regarding minor variance application D13-7/2023, recommendation report, planning report 2024-04, and that West Elgin Committee of Adjustment grant minor variance D13-7/2023 to obtain relief from section 10.3.3, items C and D, and subsection 4.29.1F as follows. 1, item C, reduce the required front yard setback from 12 meters to 9 meters. Item F, reduce the required rear yard setback from 6 meters to 5.5 meters. And subsection 4.29.1F, to permit the encroachment of a covered porch into a required rear yard by 2.5 meters maximum.
Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Navakis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Tellier. All in favour? It's carried. And we'll go on to number 7, which is D13-8/2023. Robert, could you please speak on this one, please?
Certainly. The application in this instance is at 239 and 241 Furnival Road. This lot is located in the southeast corner of the intersection of Queen and Furnival. Most folks locally would know this as the former car dealership on the corner that did have a number of buildings that have been removed over the years since the dealership closed and has been vacant most recently. We've been working over the last little while with the owner of the property that's next door that has the Rodney store there, and trying to redevelop this property on the corner for a combination of retail, convenience store, and a gas station. The lot itself, you would think, is oriented towards Furnival, but because the narrower section faces Queen, and then this is a separate lot on its own, it actually the frontage is on Queen, so the front is Queen, and is part of the rationale for the variances that are being brought forward. Kind of trying to address a bit of a technical issue here for the lot. There's a total of 3 variances that are being requested. 2 that were absolutely necessary, and 1 that I thought, as long as we're here, as long as we're dealing with the 2 others, we might as well provide some clarity going forward. The 1 reduction is in the side yard setback. The request is for from 4.5 meters to 1.1 meters. This side yard, essentially, if you're facing Queen, or if you're on Queen and you're facing the lot, this would be on the easterly side, and backs onto 2 residential lots that are on Stinson. The second minor variance is for a reduction of the rear yard from 3 meters to 0 meters. This actually allows for the property owner to build or to add onto his existing building, which is to the south, and connect the two. Normally, again, if this lot had been facing Furnival and was the front, and being in a downtown core, there would have been no setback requirement between the two buildings. But again, because of the orientation, we needed to address the rear yard. And then the last one, gas station parking is always a bit of a challenge. The minimum requirement is 3 spaces. If you count just what are technically the dedicated spaces around the building that are shown on the plan, they're short by about three space. They're short the 3 spaces you need for the gas bar, but they have lots of parking for the additional space that's being provided. However, a lot of times the gas bar parking doesn't take into consideration the fact you have gas pumps. And quite often when somebody comes to the gas station, they park at the pumps, pump their gas, and then they leave. This has 3 pumps, which means there's 6 spaces, 1 on either side. So just to provide clarity, I included in the variance the recognition that the required parking for the gas bar is being provided at the gas pumps as opposed to separate dedicated spaces away from that. I don't believe this is a high volume property where that recognition of those spaces would be problematic or be shorting the parking needs on the property. Each of the variances has been addressed in the 4 tests, and I believe, in my professional opinion, that it passes each of those 4 tests and can be considered minor. I did have one phone call from a neighbor to the east that's right on the corner of Stinson and Queen. They weren't necessarily concerned with what was going on, just more wanted to know how close the development would be coming to their rear yard. I went over it with that resident. I indicated that along that side there's going to be a grass landscaped area backing onto an existing fence that belongs to them. One of the reasons that has to stay that way is there's actually a water line that comes through there and then ties into Queen Street, which kind of raises one other issue that I discussed with Mr. Gosnell, was the fact that water line is in fairly close proximity to the building addition, and prior to building, and we'll make sure that this is addressed as part of the site plan as well. There'll have to be a bit of caution taken just because of the proximity of the construction to the water line in there. There may have to be a little bit of adjustments made there in order to accommodate, but it was a concern, but not something big enough concern to prevent or prohibit moving forward with the construction. And as I mentioned, we still have the site plan process to go through, and this has been passed on to the applicant along with a request that we may want to establish as part of that site plan approval process an easement over that existing water line, because to this point we're not aware of one that exists. The Conservation Authority again was a little late on commenting, but I did eventually receive it after the report was submitted. Again, they acknowledged the application, but there was no concerns with what was being proposed in terms of the variances. In terms of the strategic priorities, this aligns with the economic development to ensure strong economy that supports growth and maintains lower cost of living, and is certainly welcome development in the downtown Rodney area. Unless there's questions from the public or council, that is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Seeing none, can I have the recommendation, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Robert Brown Planner regarding minor variance application D13 8-2023 recommendation report, planning report 2024-01, and that West Elgin Committee of Adjustment grant minor variance D13 8-2023 to obtain relief from section 16.1 table 16-1, items 3B and 4C in subsection 4.18.1 as follows. 1, item 3B, reduce the required side yard setback from 4.5 meters to 1.1 meter. Item 4C, reduce the required rear yard setback from 3 meters to 0 meters. And subsection 4.18.1 to recognize the required parking for a gas bar as being provided at the gas pumps.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Navakis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Tellier. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Which brings us to 8 is adjournment.
That West Elgin Committee of Adjustment hereby closes this public meeting held pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act at 4:21 PM.
Mover, please. Councillor Statham. Seconded. Councillor Navakis. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going straight on to number 4, which is a public meeting.
That West Elgin Council proceed into a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act.
Okay, is Robert on there for this one?
I
Please,
am.
thank you. Oh, I'm moving the second.
Also move.
Yeah, councillor. Statham, it was seconded. You got it, right? Thank you. All in favour? It's carried. Okay, Robert, thank you very much. Would you like to comment on that one?
I will comment briefly. This application is being brought forward as a condition of approval of consent application E7423 that was presented to the County Land Division Committee back in October of 2023. One of those conditions, as council is aware, with surplus dwelling severances is the rezoning of the severed lot to restricted agricultural. And under normal circumstances, the rezoning of the retained farm parcel to prohibit future dwellings. However, during the review process, we determined that the remnant parcel in question was actually already zoned A2, result of a previous severance. Not quite sure how the house that was there that we're dealing with today was continued to be permitted, but that is water under the bridge. So we will move forward with that today. So essentially, the bylaw that's being brought forward to council to satisfy the condition of the lot creation only requires the rezoning of the lot from A2 to A3 in this particular instance, which is consistent with other surplus dwelling severances. No zoning amendment is being proposed to the agricultural part, the remnant agricultural parcels. It's already appropriately zoned. There are no issues with provincial policy statement, as this does comply with the requirement for prohibition on the remnant farm parcel, same under the county and local official plan for West Elgin. This was circulated to the neighbors and signed appropriately. The Conservation Authority again was circulated as part of the application review process, but no comments were received relative to this, and there has been no feedback from the public as a result. And being just a zoning as a condition, there are no real strategic priority alignments on this particular application. So unless there's questions from council or the public, that is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any questions from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Seeing none, yet again, could I have the recommendation, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Robert Brown Planner regarding zoning bylaw amendment D 22 twenty twenty-three for 23625 Pioneer Line Recommendation Report, Planning Report 2024-02, and that West Elgin Council approve the rezoning for 23625 Pioneer Line from agricultural A2 zone to restricted agricultural A3 zone in accordance with the attached draft bylaw. And further, that West Elgin Council consider the bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw as presented in the bylaw portion of the January 25th, 2024 council agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Denning. Seconded by Councillor Navakis. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. Number 5, we're on delegations. Judge Kennedy. Recreation fees. If you'd like to come up to the podium, please, and press the button. Thank you. Thank you. And speak, you're welcome. Thank you. If you'd like to press the button to liven up your,
Just like that?
that's it, and carry on with your delegation. Thank you.
Thanks for seeing us, folks. My first time doing this sort of stuff, so we'll see what happens. You guys probably had a copy of the sheet that I sent over to get the delegation permission. What we're trying to do, we're seniors. A lot of us are seniors trying to play, trying to do, look at me. Trying to get out and do recreational things in our community. We have so the rec center is for our community. We can't use it if we can't afford it. Folks complained about the $3 last year, and now it's 40% higher at $5. We're pretty much all on fixed incomes. So it's, by fixed incomes, I'm talking about the government pension. The majority of the players for both the shuffle and pickleball, I shuffler. We have shufflers and pickleballers here. So I'm talking a lot on behalf of trying to do it for both, but if there are other questions for pickleballers, Joy is here as well. Majority of the players for both shuffle and pickleball are residents of the municipality and already pay taxes to be here. So to play in that building. With a future seniors complex being built, want to be able to attract participants, not shun them away. Trying to get, we've been trying to get more folks out here now that we have 8 courts to play with, which we only had 4 before. 8 courts to shuffle and 4 for pickleball. It's that rate, that dollar amount is difficult to, for people. Again, it's going to deter people from coming out. Last year, we tried to get a grant to cover all our fees for playing, because there was a grant available at that time. And we jumped through all the government hoops and all that stuff. Didn't give us an answer why it was turned down. So I don't know what the reason was. Never got an answer back on any of that stuff. So we don't know if there are more grants available this year, but I mean, we're just a bunch of volunteers that get together and play together and have fun. Complain, majority of the folks, both future, the Ontario Shuffleboard Association, and I'm looking on my behalf, but for the pickleballers also, they could probably put on a tournament. Joy says they could. We could put on a tournament here as well, which again is going to bring outside money into the municipality. They are offering us an event for the Ontario Shuffleboard Association. It would be 4 days at the rec center, both amateur and professional. 2 days of each. There would have to be, so there would be extra money coming from everywhere else. By everywhere else, I'm talking across Ontario. Ingersoll had the Worlds last year, so they had stuff, Germany, Austria, England, all US, everywhere. Anyway, we're talking about just Ontario stuff. So all of a sudden, we've got some money from Timmins. We've got some money in the municipality. Well, many of them will bring their trailers. We have campgrounds here. Again, the dollar amount may affect whether or not we would get a tournament of any sort through the Ontario Shuffleboard Association. Just a thought. Just so we used to pay $30 for the year, calendar year, to play shuffleboard there. That was up to 3 years ago, guys. 3 years ago. Dutton for pickleball, they pay $2 per game. Right? Chatham, $30 a year. Blenheim and Ridgetown, $30 a year. City of London with a city-run program, $30 a year per person. That's 6 days for us. That's kind of scary. And the new lines that were put on there, they're not holding up worth a darn. They're chipping and everything. I'm having to cut and use Goo Gone on the glue part. So that the stuff that's lifting isn't affecting either the pickleball people or ourselves. So on that list, it says shuffle, pickle, and walking. I don't know if walking people are gonna come. They do it three times a week, and they're supposed to pay $5 each time. As far as I know, they didn't pay anything most recently. The last lines that were there, which did hold up better, were there at least 10 years. Anyway, and I think they were painted on. Shutters did all the paperwork. I think I got everything on that now. It's not used to having a microphone, so. it's kind of-
Thank you for your delegation,
You want to stay there for some?
and I'm going to ask council if there's any questions. Yes.
Through the chair, thank you for coming, and all the pickleballers and shuffleboarders and walkers or whatever your sport is that you're looking into or doing. And thank you for your commitment in coming to us. So have you had ideas or anything about renting it and using it like the cornholers, for example, that use it as their own and then charge so much a person? Have you thought about that? And then you just get a liability sheet from your insurance.
We got a dollar
company or
amount
something?
from, I think we had two meetings, Shufflers had two
Mhm.
meetings last year
Okay,
with Lee and Bridget? Brittany, thank you. I got the B right. And that's when we had decided, we, as in talking
collective group,
with
yeah.
you guys together, had decided on going with a municipally run program in comparison to a rental program, because the rental program was going to be a silly dollar amount
hmm
for 27 people at that time. For 27 people, it was going to be a scary dollar amount, which wasn't going to be covered with the $30, like having a yearly dollar amount as a membership fee, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Okay.
So
Your worship, okay if I have another question?
Yes,
follow-up question?
sure.
Okay, through the chair. And then when you spoke of grants, was it a municipal grant through the municipality grant program, or what kind of grant did you look into?
Brittany had
Had
told,
something?
had told me of it,
Okay.
so we instigated we had to do it. No, it wasn't through you guys. Now, maybe, is there something? That would be great if we could, if there is. We don't know of anything. No one's told us of
Okay.
anything
There's a
like
community
that.
grant program. It's ended for the year. It closed off December 31st, but there's that option too to look at. And then lastly, I don't know, we brought this up. I'm the chair of the rec board, and Councilor Navakis is also on the rec board with me for a committee. We talked about it at our last rec board meeting. We had last term of council, Councillor Cameron brought up a good idea in regards to having like a yearly fee. But none of us could remember why that didn't go through. So I'd have to look up the notes about why that wasn't a good idea. Staff did a great report on it. I couldn't find the report though to bring to today. But I'm sure staff has it somewhere. Why a 1 year you pay once.
Well, it's
fee
just,
didn't
yeah,
work.
as I said, the single year, like London for a full year is $30.
Mm-hmm. That's what her
That's
idea that she
just
came
'cause
up
it's
with
for us.
was a 1 year fee, but not sure why the reasoning behind that was.
Okay, councillor Novakis, please.
Through the chair, Teresa kind of stole my question, so perhaps it is a thing for Lee, though, for further clarification. So for the main room to rent, it's $50 an hour.
Yep.
You have to add to your insurance, which I've called my insurance, it's not that much more. So if you have 15 people playing, that's $3.30 a time that they're going, which is what it was last year. So I'm just wondering if
Per hour.
per hour.
Yeah,
And how long are you guys-
we're usually there from about 9 o'clock through 11.
So for 2 hours, it's $5, right? That's what we're looking at. So Joy and I have talked about this. So when we use Chatham and London as comparison at $30, it's not an accurate comparison because they have a much larger tax base. So the taxes that they're collecting for their rec center is a smaller amount. The other reason I called them, they've activated their spaces. So their spaces are, a lot of them are operating from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, sometimes 7 days a week. So it costs them probably the same amount as it costs us to run the rec center, but they have way more people coming in. So I agree, $5 for seniors and for what you're doing is a lot. Where I'm having a hard time with is how do we fund the rec center with our small population? And when it's only activated primarily through shuffleboard and pickleball and cornhole. So we have maybe 10, 15 hours a week that we're activating this building, but we're still having to pay for it. And as Joy knows, I want more rec. And so it's how do we get more people in the building so that we're able to lower rates? And then the other question I have, would people rather we take the insurance cost and the cost of the roof and the cost of running this building and just put it on our taxes and then only charge the $2? And I can't get an answer from anyone. And it is something that as a counselor, I'm struggling with. The money has to come from somewhere. And as you guys have all realized that writing grants, we're all writing grants. They don't exist anymore. And often we will spend hours and hours of staff time writing grants and we get turned down. So I agree with every single thing you're saying. I am looking for what the answer is because we have to pay for this building. So is it that people would rather us just add it to the tax bill and keep fees low? Or do we charge what we have to because insurance on the building has gone up 20%? And the electricity has gone up? Or is there a way if you pay at the beginning and you rent the space, right? That we could be guaranteeing income at the beginning, that you're doing most of the organizing, which takes off weight of the staff. And these are kind of more broader questions that like I would hope to talk to people. I just can't wrap my head around it. The building costs what it costs. And if we only have a small amount of people using it, we have to take that money from somewhere else. And I've talked to a few people and they're like, oh, I don't want it on my taxes. I don't use the rec center. So
I can understand that too. though.
right, so it's
Yep.
just, like, and I'm asking this question, I love you all, like I'm using the rec center on Wednesday nights, I had 20 kids come. Half of them could pay. So I understand that we're all facing the $5 challenge. As a counselor though, who's also accountable for the bottom line, I don't know how to make it work.
Didn't we used to pay the insurance?
Yeah.
For us?
Can I?
Yeah, we used to pay the insurance for our group. Go ahead, Joy. You were, sorry, I should.
I just wanted to add, what you said, just have to get our money from the pickleballers. Like, I don't know if the card people pay, the municipal elections you guys have every year, we don't pay to go in to do the elections, which fair board, the meetings, all the other stuff, it's a community thing. I guess I would rather been approached as a pickleballer and said, hey, let's have a tournament, let's get the money to help pay for our lines or help as a community have a raise the roof fund. pay for that roof and not put the taxes up, I guess. Cause I know the one fellow that comes to pickleball, it was free, then it went to $2, and last year he said, oh, it's $3. And I says, yes, well, he hasn't come back, it's 5 now, he has 2 kids. Not probably the groceries, right? Like, I just think there's a bigger picture as a community fundraising, not just a pickleball shuffleboard, cash cow that we invented that we didn't have before. And walkers, walk for an hour for $5. Someone trips is probably gonna sue the township. Like we should do things smoother. Don't have it. My God.
Okay, Bill, councillor Denning.
Thank you, your worship, and through the chair, and thank you very much to the delegation for being here this afternoon with us. Yeah, this is it's always a difficult thing where you're trying to expand programming, and in order to expand any sort of service, an investment needs to be made in order to cover that, and also not only to cover the ongoing costs of things, but also setting money aside for the eventual renovations that are going to be required. I know that in our budget talks already, there's line items for enhancements required at the Rodney Rec Center. That being said, I'm sure there's other creative ways that we can help mitigate the frontline cost to the folks that are participating in these recreational programs. For instance, at our arena, there is corporate advertising on the walls. There is businesses that sponsor the public skates. And of course, that's something that I think it's become quite popular, actually. And again, I wonder if it's worth a discussion to talk about whether or not there'd be business organizations in West Elgin that would be interested in sponsoring some of your activities to help reduce that cost for the folks that are participating. So perhaps that's something that we can look at, so that we can continue to bring in the money we need to make the investments, to make sure that 10, 15, 20 years from now, the Rodney Rec Center is still available for us to use, and also to address these immediate concerns right now, trying to find that common ground.
Thank you. Yes.
Through the chair, I was just saying that perhaps the best thing to do is to invite 1 or 2 of your representatives to join us at our next rec meeting, where we can discuss fundraising and the fees and what moving forward the plans would be. I would argue that we have to get through this budget, and we are allocating and doing organizational reviews so that we can fill positions. And part of that hopefully will alleviate maybe staff who can then look at this. But I would say at our current time, our staff is all pretty run ragged, and that the best thing would be for the rec committee to start to look at fundraising. What does tournaments look like? Can we get business sponsorship for these events so that we can start to lower the costs?
On the note of the tournaments, I'm sorry, I'm going over
No, go
the
on.
time. On the note of that tournament, the OSA, Ontario Shuffleboard Association, president will be here in March when he gets back from where he winters. At $50 an hour for 4 days, they're not going to be able to. They give us $250 plus a stroke of the entry fee of the people that are coming. We're going to fill that place for 4 days. All courts will be used. So there will be a substantial amount of people here. I'm not sure on dates yet. He hasn't given me exact dates yet. It could be in August, it could be in May. I'm not sure yet, but if there was, and they're going to be there's going to be a pile of coin coming into the municipality, put it that way. Restaurants, grocery store, all that stuff, including campgrounds, because they bring their trailers. They camp there. So just a thought, something to think of for, again, trying to promote Rodney. I try to do my darndest to promote the heck out of Rodney, and yes, car show's on the way.
I think you take the invite of maybe 2 people going on to the rec committee to give some ideas and listen to what the rec committee's got to say. That would be an advantage, and I think that would be a good start.
I agree. As long as it's not on Zoom. I was gonna go to the last one. It was on Zoom. I'm going.
If you don't-
Through the chair, it's always on Zoom. We always use Zoom because
Yeah.
everybody's in different spots. We're parents and people are zooming from their car, the soccer field, everywhere. So it's always on Zoom.
For the lady at the back, if she wanted to say any more, I'd like
I
you,
volunteer.
I say volunteer. But if you have any more to say, I want you to come to the podium and state your name, and because we have people listening. Okay, thank you for the offer.
Well, good.
That was well taken. Okay, thank you very much for your delegation.
Thanks, folks.
I think everybody's taken that in well. And we're going to go for a break. So before we go on to 5.2, which is Watson's Associations, we're going to take a 5 minutes break at least. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to carry on with this meeting and welcome Daryl Abbs. If you would come forward, please, and give your report from Watson and Association. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to council for having me here this evening. It's nice to be here in person, especially because the weather cooperated today, so I was very appreciative of that. So tonight I'm going to be just doing a brief presentation and overview on what development charges are. I know all of the other municipalities in the county have development charges except Dutton Dunwich, who is currently under review. I actually have the draft report in my backpack to review this evening. So the other communities are looking at development charges, so this is just an overview. What are they, and what potentially could they look like for yourselves? And so next slide, please. And so I'll just do a brief overview of development charges. We'll talk about, I'm sure you're all aware of what Bill 23 is, but I'll talk a little bit specifically on how it impacted the development charge legislation and what that does for development charges. Talk about the potential services you could incorporate into a background study and a bylaw. Talk about some of the development charge rates in the county and the other municipalities, so you can see how they compare. And then talk about, if you were to consider it, what a timeline for implementation actually looks like. And then happy to answer any questions. And I find actually, if you have questions as I'm going and you want to just stop me and ask a question, I'm okay with that too. Okay, next slide, please. And one more. So development charges are a revenue tool used by municipalities all across the province of all different sizes to recover the capital costs associated with new development in your municipality. And so you have new homes, you have new businesses being constructed, and because of that, you need to widen a road, you need to add turning lanes, you need to build intersection improvements. Maybe it's expansion to the water and wastewater network. Maybe you have to expand public works or a fire station and add new vehicles. And so that's really what development charges are for, to recover those capital costs from the new development. And so these costs are in addition to what the developers would normally pay for as part of their subdivision. So you can think of a subdivision, they have the roads internal to that subdivision. They would pay for those roads, the water, the wastewater mains under those roads, the sidewalks in that subdivision. The developer would pay for all those. This is the broader infrastructure to connect that subdivision with the rest of the municipality. So typically development charges are paid for at first building permit. And there's some nuance, especially with the recent legislative changes, but essentially before they get their building permit, they have to pay the development charge. Okay, all of this is guided by the Development Charges Act. There's something like 70 clauses and 20 or so years of OMB, OLT, LPAT, whatever it's called today, case law, which kind of guides the way that we calculate the charges and recover the funds from the developers. Next slide, please. And so I always like to start off with in a perfect world, because as we know, things never kind of happen linearly, but in a perfect world, you'd start off with your official plan and you'd undertake that exercise. You'd identify all the growth and development you'd anticipate in your municipality, whether that's over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And then from there, once you know how you're gonna grow and where you're gonna grow, typically you'd undertake master plans. And so you might have a water or wastewater master plan, which would take that official plan information and say, if we're gonna grow by 2,000 people and we're gonna grow over in this area of the municipality in Rodney for 2,000 people, then we're gonna need to expand this water main, or we need to expand the treatment capacity, et cetera. That would identify all those capital needs required to accommodate that new development. Then from there, the development charges are fairly straightforward, because we, not to minimize my job at all, but we basically take the costs associated with the new development, divide it by the new development, and that's your development charge. Next slide, please. So, development charges aren't new. They've been around actually since the 50s. They were called lot levies and imposed under the Planning Act. 1989, there was a more formalized legislation, and then it was revised in 1997. The province has been very busy in changing the legislation, and there's actually probably going to be some more changes coming out. I would perceive next month when they sit again. But they have made some refinements and changes, which, especially with Bill 23, just provide added discounts and exemptions for things like affordable housing and stuff to try to reduce the impact of development charges on new development. Next slide, please. So the Development Charges Act does list out all the services you can consider for inclusion in a development charge bylaw. And so, without naming all of them, because that later in the slide, I'll talk about some potential services that you might be able to consider. But they are listed specifically in the Development Charges Act. Next slide, please. So with that in mind, and if we're thinking about, okay, so there's certain services we might be able to recover for, then what are those actual capital costs, or those capital projects we could pay for with development charges? And so you can acquire land. So if you're going to purchase land to build a facility or expand a facility, if you're going to improve the land. So if you're building, let's say there's you dedicated land for a park, and now you need to develop that park from raw land. You need to put the pathways, the trees, the landscaping, and then the amenities, maybe a baseball diamond, maybe the playground equipment. All of that can be included for recovery. You can construct a facility. I think the traditional way is always to construct a facility, and then you can program that facility, a rec center or community center. But you can also lease a facility. If there is an existing space in the municipality, you want to lease it to provide a service out of there, you can include that for recovery as well. Equipment and rolling stock is really like your public works vehicles or parks and recreation vehicles. So your pickup trucks and your mowers and stuff like that, major assets. And then as well, if there's circulation materials for libraries, if you're responsible for that. In addition, you can include interest on anything that you're borrowing for. So if you were building, obviously recreation centers and arenas and such are very expensive. If you were to build one, you'd probably debenture it, and then you can include the interest cost in a development charge study. You used to be able to recover the cost of the actual study itself, but they did remove that with Bill 23. Next slide, please. So when we're looking at the background study and we're identifying the capital costs that we need to accommodate the new development, we can use any time horizon forecast. And I'm not quite sure what your capital budget is. Maybe it's a 1 year or 3 year forecast. Some municipalities do 5, some do 10. Anything after 10 starts to get a little tricky unless you have those master plan exercises to find it. But so we can use any time horizon. Typically, it's 10 years. I'll talk about a little bit later, but you have to reduce those costs by any grant, subsidies, other contributions. If you're going to get the money from elsewhere, you're not going to charge the developers for that. And then the third bullet's very wordy, but that's right from the legislation. Essentially what it means is, so let's say the Tri-County Water Board wants to, and they have to expand the system for growth in your municipality. And so they're going to impose a capital charge onto the municipality. You can take that capital charge and then charge it to the developers as a development charge. That's essentially what that says. And then there's certain exclusions, certain things we're not allowed to include specifically listed in the Act. Parkland acquisition, so if you're getting parkland dedicated through the Planning Act or the cash in lieu of the parkland, that's why you can't collect it with development charges. Any vehicles or equipment that are really not substantive assets, so they have to have a useful life of more than 7 years. back in 1989, municipalities started to get a little too cute with it. They were putting hammers and nails and literally everything in there to charge the developers. And they said, okay, it has to be significant assets. So. And then the second to last bullet there is computer equipment. I think we can all appreciate computers played a different role in our lives in 1997 than they do today. So what the case law now says is if it's integral to providing the service, you can include it in development charges. So things like a SCADA system for your water and wastewater operations, even like police, they have a laptop in their computer. That's integral to providing the police service, so you can include that even though it is a computer. Okay. And then lastly, studies, they are excluded, so things like master plans. Now, the province just recently announced that they're going to be revisiting that. So those might be eligible in the near future, but that's yet to be determined. Next slide, please. And so, through the exercise, you go through and you identify all those capital costs that are required to accommodate new developments. We're going to identify the amounts and allocate how much is related to that new development. But before we get to that, the Development Charges Act does say we have to look at your historical inventory, make sure that what the level of service was over the last 15 years, we're not going to exceed that for the new, we're not going to make the new developers pay more than your level of service over the last 15 years. So as part of the development charge background study, there's always this mathematical calculation that we have to do, unfortunately. So, we have to look back, and if we go to the next slide, please, we have to go and look back at the asset inventory for each of the services we want to include over the last 15 years. Okay, so this doesn't apply to water or wastewater, but it would apply to something like fire, police, and roads. Okay, so this is just an example, but we would identify all of the square feet of facility space, for example, identify the cost to replace that facility so that we can determine what that average value is for those facilities, come up with the level of investment you've made per capita over the last 15 years, apply that to the growth and make sure we're not exceeding that level of service cap. Okay. And next slide, please. And next slide. The tables are in there if you're curious on what the math looks like, but at a high level, that's the important stuff. So further, as part of the development charge background study, we always include this, what we call a local service policy. And what this really does is it helps the development community because it sets out what's the responsibility of the developer to pay versus what would we actually include in the development charge. Remember I said the local service policy within the subdivision, they'll pay for the roads and such. We would list that out in the policy so that it's clear they would have to pay for that. And then everything else would be recovered through development charges. And so typically what we do is go through and look at, how do you treat local roads versus collector roads versus arterial roads? What about intersection improvements? What about intersection improvements with county roads? Street lights, things like that, and go through each service and identify what's the developer's cost and what goes into the development charge. Next slide, please. So just graphically, this is kind of what that looks like. If we, for example, we took a look at water, you might have water supply and treatment, storage, large pumping stations, or large trunk mains would all be funded through development charges. But if you have something like a pumping station for one development or a main required for one development, then that would be the local service requirement on that developer. Next slide, please. So in terms of calculating the development charge, the first thing you have to do is identify that amount, type, and location of growth and development. So is it residential, non-residential? Is it all low density, single detached homes? Do you have some townhomes or apartments? And once you understand how much growth, the amount, type, and location, then you need to identify the servicing need to accommodate that growth. So the easiest example is, so let's say we have 1,000 new people coming over the next 10 years. We're going to need recreation services for those 1,000 people. The third item there says, okay, so what's the actual capital cost that's going to meet that need to service that new growth? And so that could be a community center or an arena or a pool or something that would provide that recreation service to meet that need.
Excuse me, you said butt in if we wanted. does anything to do with schools or anything like that come into that?
So the schools actually, they have a different piece of legislation. So schools can actually have their own education development charges, actually to purchase land for schools. But no, development charges wouldn't be used for schools, and they wouldn't apply to any school
It's an
development.
expected service?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so once we identify all those capital projects that we need, so those road widenings, water mains, et cetera, then we need to go in and make a series of deductions. And so if you have any grants, subsidies, or other contributions, if any share of the work actually benefits the existing community. So a good example is, let's say you had a community center and it was 1,000 square feet, and you wanted to knock it down and build a 2,000 square foot community center. Well, only 50% of that can be paid for by the developers. 50% would be benefit to the existing, so paid for through taxes. And then we would measure this against that level of service calculation we did. We do a math calculation, find that upper limit. If we're above that limit, then we have to make a deduction so that we're not past that limit. And then over time, as you do these development charge studies, if there is any balance in the reserve funds, because you're going to set up a reserve fund for each service, put the money in there as you collect it. And if there's any balance, then that gets deducted off of the calculations as well. Once you get to the end and you say this is the cost to growth, then you have to separate that between residential benefit and non-residential benefit, and then you can divide it by the growth in each sector to come up with the charges. Next slide, please. And so that's what we end up with, is we end up with on the residential side, usually a development charge per unit, and it would be per single detached, single and semi-detached. There would be townhomes or multiples, and then there'd be the high density, there'd be the apartments. On the non-residential side, typically it's done on a per square foot basis. It can be either all non-residential development, or you could separate it to have an industrial rate versus a non-industrial rate. Next slide, please. And so typically I just like to show this slide because it's one of those, the money has to come from somewhere is usually what we say. And so if you need to service and you need to accommodate new development and you need to expand your infrastructure, you need to build more infrastructure to accommodate that development, the money has to come from somewhere. If it's roads, for example, you need a road widening to accommodate new development and they're not paying for it directly, then that's going to go on to taxes, right? And so development charges are a way that you can pull that off taxes and have new development pay for that expanded infrastructure. And so to the extent that it's related to new development, you can use development charges. Otherwise, it comes from either taxes, or if it's water, wastewater, it would come from rates. Next slide, please. And next slide. So as you're aware, Bill 23 came into force November of 2022 and made some changes to the Development Charges Act to add a number of exemptions from development charges, discounts, and otherwise reduce what we can impose on the new development. Next slide, please. So I won't go into this in great detail, but essentially, I think we all heard with Bill 23, they're trying to incentivize affordable housing and attainable housing. Unfortunately, those are the two exemptions that are still not yet enforced from this legislation. They're still working to define what that actually is. And so, but essentially, when that does come into force, any affordable or attainable units that meet that definition would then be exempt from development charges. There's also nonprofit housing is exempt from development charges. And as well, if you have a single detached home and you build a basement apartment or you build a unit on top of a garage, those are exempt as well. You get up to 2 units and you don't have to pay a development charge on that. Next slide, please. And so if you're building rental housing, you actually get a discount based on the number of bedrooms. So it can be anywhere from 15 to 25% discount. And as well, from another previous change to the legislation, they actually get to pay in installments over 5 years. There's some adjustments to the capital cost definition. And then the one major change is this mandatory phase-in. And so whatever we calculate as a development charge, the first year you can only impose 80% of that. second year 85, and then it goes up 5% until after 5 years, you can charge the fully calculated rate. The province did mention that that's another area that they're revisiting, and so there may be some changes with that, but right now we have to phase in that charge. And most communities that look at implementing development charges for the first time actually tend to phase in at a much slower rate. I know I helped Bruce County implement development charges recently, and they phased in slowly over 10 years. But it's completely up to the local municipality how they want to do that. Okay, and next slide, please. And then there were some administrative changes, but the one big one here is that previously development charge bylaws used to be good for 5 years, then they would expire. Now they expire after 10 years. And so there's no requirement to do another study or a new bylaw for 10 years. If you wanted to do one sooner, you could, but it does last for 10 years. Next slide, please. And next slide. So just to highlight, with Bill 23, previously there was mandatory exemptions in the Development Charges Act. So if the county builds a building, you wouldn't impose a development charge on them. Similarly, they're not going to impose a development charge on you. Same thing with the school boards. For industrial buildings, they can actually expand their building with up to 50%, and they don't have to pay development charges on that. And then there's also universities are exempt. All of the other exemptions in the orange are the ones I talked about from Bill 23. So you can see they did add a number of mandatory exemptions and discounts just recently. Next slide, please. So that's the mandatory exemptions. You have to do those, but council does have the ability to exempt types of development at their discretion. And so some of the most common exemptions are phasing in over a longer period of time, as I mentioned, but also places of worship and bona fide farms. And so if it's actually a bona fide farming use, that makes sense. So almost all municipalities exempt bona fide farming. Industrial uses, if there's and some of the other ones that are more common are if there's like a specific area of your municipality that you want to incentivize, if there's a BIA or if there's downtown area, you want to exempt that. Next slide, please. Just some other matters. One of the things the legislation talks about is you can't take what you would collect from one group and impose it on the other. So if you go through the whole process and then you find, oh, I don't want to charge non-residential development, let's just recover that from the residential development. You're not allowed to do that. And then the public process has been extended over the years. I think it was in 2017 is when they extended it. And so now you have to prepare a background study, which sets out all of these specific parameters. That has to be on the municipality's website 60 days before you can even consider passing a bylaw. So typically there's, and I'll talk about a timeline, what that looks like, but essentially you'll put the report on the website. The next month, you'd have a formal public meeting under the Development Charges Act, and the month after that is when you would look at considering passing a bylaw. In between updates to the bylaw, you're not going to recalculate the charges every single year. And so what the Development Charges Act lets you do is inflate the charge with the construction cost index. So as construction costs go up, you can increase the charge along with that. Next slide, please. And next slide. So looking at your financial information return, looking at the services where you have expenditures, it'd be fire to some extent, maybe a minor component, but it could be police services, services related to a highway, which would really be roads and public works, parks and recreation services, water and wastewater. Next slide, please. And so I did a little survey of development charge rates in the county, and so you'll see Elmer, Bayham, Central Elgin around the $15,000 to $20,000 per single detached unit. Malahide's a little bit less, and Southwell's a little bit less at $9,000 and about $7,200 per single detached unit. The reason being Malahide and Southwell don't include water and wastewater development charges in their calculations. So when we compare something like Central Elgin to Malahide, there's also water and wastewater infrastructure in that charge. Dun Dunwich, as I mentioned, doesn't have a development charge right now. They're considering it. The background study is probably going to be posted on the website relatively shortly. And so one of the things that always comes up, one of the questions is, how is this going to impact, development? If I put a charge in, is it going to kind of scare away development for my community? And so one of the things we try to look at is, what's the development charge as a percentage of the house price? And what we've seen over time is, historically, development charges across the province typically were around 6 to 8% of a house price. Now what we're seeing with the escalation of house prices very quickly, that, and you can see in the county, development charges are a, smaller percentage of a house price. And next slide, please. And next slide. So typical implementation timeline is about 6 to 8 months, depending on how fast or slow you want to go, and how much consultation you want to have throughout the process. And so, a typical process, you would start the project, you would, meet with staff and go through all the details, and then you start preparing that growth forecast right away. How much development do you anticipate? What type of development? Where is it going to be? And then you kind of work through the details of the policies and the calculations. Optionally, there's some municipalities like to have a council workshop in the middle of the process, or once the rates are finalized, so that you can see them before we go forward and put a background study on the website, or stakeholder engagement. And so meeting with the local development community, sometimes, especially with first development charge, is something that municipalities consider. It would be impactful, and it's always good to hear from them, separate from the formal public meeting. And so some municipalities prefer to do a stakeholder engagement session, some don't, but that's kind of your option. Okay. And as I mentioned, once you prepare the background study, you put it on the website, then you have that public meeting, then you have the bylaw passage meeting where you review and consider if you want to change anything in the bylaw, and then you can pass the bylaw, and then it's enforced for 10 years. And next slide. And that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very good presentation, and I'm sure we got some questions. Councillor Denning, please.
Mr. Mayor, and through the chair, Daryl, thank you for this great presentation. So I guess my two questions. The first one is, we are a very small community that has not experienced a tremendous amount of growth in the past. There seems to be a little bit starting now. What is the advantage to the developer in working with a municipality that has development fees? Because if Dutton passes a bylaw to implement development fees, that means we're going to be the only municipality in Elgin County that doesn't have them. Is that something that might be attractive to developers not having it?
Yeah, so through the mayor, that's one of the questions we always get is, well, if others have it, or if we have a lower charge, is that going to spur development? And what we find is some of the highest growing municipalities have the highest development charges. And I think the development community realizes that, going back to that kind of triangle, 3 bubbles, the money has to come from somewhere, right? And so if you're not, the developers typically end up passing that cost down through the price of the home to the homeowner. But if you're not recovering the cost that you need to, so for example, if there's a large infrastructure project, like if you need to expand a lagoon, wastewater lagoon, that's very expensive. And so if you're not putting that on development charges and imposing that way, what happens is that goes on to the wastewater rates or the taxes. And what you'll hear is people saying, well, my taxes are really high, or my rates are really high. And the reason being is you're funding all of the expansion, if there's expansion, through the rates or taxes. So that's the benefit, is that potentially that'll help mitigate some of the impacts on taxes and rates.
One follow-up.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, absolutely. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. But what are the advantages to the developer to work with a municipality that actually has development fees versus one that's next door that doesn't?
So through the mayor, I guess, you know, in terms of advantages versus, I guess, is there a disadvantage to having them? Besides the fee that they have to pay, you know, it's just ensuring that you're planning for the expansion, you're planning for infrastructure to accommodate the new development. I think that signals to them that you're planning for that future development. So I think that's what the advantage would be. At the end of the day, I think, you know, nobody likes to pay a fee. But what it is just a proper planning tool, proper municipal revenue tool to ensure that you're collecting what you need to help mitigate the impacts. So, yeah, but what we find is it's, you know, not much of a deterrent, especially if what you're implementing isn't a very significant fee. And that's where there's some discretionary power from council to say, okay, well, we've calculated a fee, it's $20,000 to match, you know, the others. Well, that's too high. And I think we don't want to impose that. So we're okay subsidizing that, the development community, by funding that with taxes and rates to up to $10,000, right? And so you have that ability to kind of pull that down. So
Thank you very much, Daryl.
Councillor Novakis.
Through the chair, thank you. I would also argue that most developers just put the cost into the sale price of it anyways. And we haven't had development charges for years, and that hasn't really seen lots of growth. We have a number of projects that are in theory starting. When do development charges get applied?
So through the mayor, the development charges typically get applied at the building permit stage. However, if there are some nuances where if you proceed through a site plan or a zoning bylaw amendment, there are some rate freeze applications. So if I submit my application today for a site plan or a zoning bylaw amendment, my rate's frozen at whatever it is today. So it'd be zero because there is no charge. Then that rate's frozen until the municipality considers the application. Once you approve the application, they have 2 years to pull their building permits. If they pull the building permits within those 2 years, their rate's still frozen at whatever it was. Otherwise, they pay at the time of building permit. So typically it's building permit, and that's usually where it follows. So if there's some in the process, that's where you might want to consider transition, because if they've done pro formas that are based on zero development charges, implementing it might be a shock. So that's where you might want to consider some transition for those that are in the development process.
Councillor Statham.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thanks, Daryl. That was a great presentation. I personally learned a lot from that, so that's great. Thank you. I guess I was just seeking a little bit of clarification, and to your point, I understand that the money has to come from somewhere. When I was looking at your slideshow, you had the different costs for homeowners in different municipalities, and I noticed some of them were $15,000, $20,000, some $7,000. I guess I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification. If the municipality were to not implement development charges and instead increase the taxes in order to pay for the necessary infrastructure, in your opinion, how would that compare to the increase in purchase price for property? Do you understand what I'm saying? If you're purchasing a property for $15,000 more than you would have, or we increase the tax revenue to pay for the development, wouldn't that be the same thing? Because at the end of the day, it's the residents and the taxpayers that are still footing the bill.
Yeah, so through the mayor, so it's actually so what happens is the cost gets spread amongst all the taxpayers. So if you have, taxpayers that are on the margin, they're struggling now to make sure that their lives are affordable, and then new development comes and requires you to expand the infrastructure significantly, you're going to take that cost and spread it amongst those people who are already struggling, rather than making the new homeowners who are building their new homes pay through development charges. So that's the difference. Yes, it's really about who pays. As you said, the money comes from somewhere, so who pays? Should it be the existing taxpayers and ratepayers paying for the infrastructure for the new development, or should the new development pay for it themselves? That's what it comes down to.
Go on.
Thank
You got another follow-up? And just one question. If we put development charges on and we pass a bylaw, how long does it take to come into being?
So it would come into effect the day after if you chose.
Would it? Oh, immediately?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Through the chair, you spoke earlier, though, that you could have a transition period.
Mhm.
What typically is the transition period? Like 6 to 8 months, I believe.
Yeah, so through the mayor, it'd really be up to you. It really varies between municipality. And so as I mentioned, Bruce County, for example, you know, we passed it in, I think it was around October, November. And then, so they didn't implement the charge until January first. And then when they implemented the charge January first, it was only 25% of what we calculated. And then, you know, the next year it was 30% kind of thing. So you can phase it in like that. Or you can have some transitional provisions where if you have developers or developments in the process, maybe at a certain point of the process, you don't want it to apply to them because they're basically just about to pull their building permits the day before you pass the bylaw. Maybe it's not fair that you impose it on them. So you have some discretion to make those adjustments.
Further questions? Councillor Novakis?
Through the chair, do we know when rough timeline we will start to hear about guidelines for affordability? And the only reason why I ask is because a lot of, I love developers and we love development, but it does seem like a really easy way to not have to pay development charges. I'm just wondering if there's a timeline, and I haven't been able to find if there is going to be a duration that those properties need to remain as affordable. Just for some of our bigger developments I can see coming, I'm just wondering if this would change.
So through the mayor, actually, if you don't mind pulling my presentation back up, I know I kind of just mentioned it at a high level. It was the one that was very wordy. But I think it's slide 19. So they did come out with an initial definition of affordable, and not so much attainable, but they did with affordable. And it was based on, it had to be about 80% of the market, and that's what was affordable. They heard from municipalities that didn't make sense because no one defines affordability by the market, they define it by income. And so what they've done is they've added this income-based approach. And so essentially what they've, and I know they put out this information through the PPS, the provincial policy statement, has this table of what's affordable. And so they look at incomes in the area and they'll say, what's the 60th percentile of income? And they'll say, okay, well, based on that income, we don't want you to spend more than 30% of that on housing, whether it's rental or owned units. So it gets into a little bit more nuance than that, but essentially they've defined it to be set at that rate. Now that generally aligns with, I don't know if the county has a housing strategy. I think they do, and that's how they would define it. A number of upper tier municipalities have housing strategies, and that's how they define it as well. So they have to enter into an agreement with you so to ensure that that remains affordable for 25 years. The challenge there is the tracking that for 25 years. And there's a number of issues we're trying to work through the province, work with the province to deal with, like who do you enter into the agreement with? Is it the developer? Is it the builder? Is it the person who buys it? Because, you know, that's going to change over 25 years. So there's some kind of implementation things the province is still working out, and we're trying to work with them to figure out what that means. So, but yes, it'd be 25 years.
Further questions from anyone? Seeing none? Okay, well, thank you very much. It was a good delegation. I've got it clear in my head now. And I can see that it's an advantage for a small municipality like us to implement something like that. Obviously, so we don't put burden on the taxpayer. So thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to call for a 5-minute break. Thank you. Okay, we'll start in the meeting again, and we're going to the adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the council meeting on January 11th, 2024 be adopted as circulated and printed.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Novakis, seconder. Councillor Denning, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Go to 6.1, committee and board minutes.
That council acknowledge receipt of the minutes of the West Elgin Community Center Board of Management, January 10th, 2024, the Four Counties Transit Service Committee, January 15th, 2024, and the Recreation Committee minutes, January 17th, 2024, as presented.
Thank you. Are you moving, Bill?
Motion to recommend.
Thank you. Councillor Denning, moved. Councillor Novakis, seconded. All in favour? It's carried. Business arising from the minutes. Seeing none? Okay, so we go to 8. Magbira, CAO Treasurer, presentation of the 2024 capital budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With council permission, I would like to start with the fire department, as the fire chief is on tight timeline.
Pardon? Say that last bit again.
The fire chief
Okay,
is
thank you.
on tight timeline. So go ahead, Jeff. You can go ahead and start with your capital budget proposal.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thanks for accommodating me. It's I must admit it's vacation, leaving for vacation soon, so that's the time schedule. So anyways, thanks for accommodating that. I will just go over the items on the capital fire budget. And I will note before we get started here that I will be sending Magda a couple updates, just looking ahead further in the forecast to 2031. So council can hopefully anticipate an updated looking further out in the forecast for the next budget update. But looking at 2024, we have the first item on there is the SCBA. So that's our breathing apparatus. And we've put in 25,000 in for that. Council may recall that's consistent with the last couple years. We brought in a implementation plan to convert our SCBA from low pressure to high pressure with an end date of 2028 if we keep up 2 packs a year. And interestingly enough, actually, they just announced through NFPA recently that the 2216 PSI packs are being phased out over time. So I think we've taken the correct direction that way. So that's on par of what we've done the last couple years to keep on moving forward on our conversion. The next item on that list is the washroom renovation. So this would be at Station 1 in Rodney. And again, council may recall last year we had 30,000 in there. We have upped that to 50,000 for 2024, just to accommodate probably some increased costs and also some kind of further staff looked at it and some further renovations to the existing washroom. So just to kind of recap from last year's discussions, Station 1 is we have lots of room there for training. And we've been fortunate enough to host some of the Elgin Middlesex courses. It's a great spot. We just Public Works Lee was kind enough to let us use this washroom last year, I guess it was, to make sure we had a male-female washroom. The fire school actually did discuss renting a portable washroom before we had the offer from Public Works, just to accommodate the number of people that are there. Recognizing that it's a handful of times a year, but we do have more female firefighters now in the department, and when we think that's doing our due diligence to add a second bathroom and renovate the original one. The third item on there is a crew cab pickup. So this is something that staff we were discussing recently as of today, actually, about Mileage, the driver behind this this proposal is mileage for training. Currently are at I think close to $10,000. I believe it's 9,000 and change in mileage expenses for this year. There is some of that that's allocated towards inspections, but the bulk of that is towards training. So even though our training is relatively local, being all in Elgin, Middlesex, a little bit in Oxford, it's still very frequent with the 1001 course and the additional training that we've seen through the department in the last couple years. So we think there's definitely some financial advantages to a pickup truck to reduce that mileage expense and for the most part eliminate it ideally. And we are considering splitting that purchase with another department, and Lee can probably speak a little bit more to that later on, but we have put the pickup truck in there. And again, just to say that's not a strictly fire department vehicle, but the proposal would include a kind of a split use vehicle. And the last item, which is our largest item, of course, is the tanker replacement. So that's looking ahead to 2025 for next year. Last fall, I believe it was, brought a report to council on the tanker replacement committee and the plans. I believe at that time we indicated we had 3, and we've got a 4th kind of pricing or quote now. They're all north of 650,000. We were hoping for budget deliberations that we would have firm pricing back, as you'll recall, likely West Elgin, Malahide, and Bayham are looking at a joint purchase of 3 trucks, but purchasing them together, identical trucks with some minor modifications compartment wise, to hopefully find some significant savings, and also through the canoe procurement policy, which the municipality has already used. So we have put 730,000 in there. Optimistically, we hope we don't need all that, but I didn't want to hopefully avoid coming back to council saying, hey, our estimates are higher than that. So that's the placeholder for now. We should honestly have some better information any day, any week now, but we don't have anything firm yet. But I believe the other 2 municipalities are budgeting right around the same amount. Happy to answer any questions on those.
Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Denning.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through the chair. Jeff, thank you so much for the presentation. Just a couple quick questions with regards to the tanker. In your opinion, could a case be made to have West Elgin operate with only 1 tanker that would be shared between the 2 stations? Or could there be a case be made to share a tanker with neighboring Dutton Dunwich? In an effort to either eliminate that cost or spread that cost and share it.
Sure. Thank you. And through the chair to council. Yeah, very fair question. And I guess to be straightforward with that, I think a tanker apparatus would be the last apparatus. I mean, generally a pumper, a rescue, and a tanker are the general complement of fire department apparatus in a given station. But I would just, I guess, caution council a little bit on considering that for a tanker. I think there's maybe there is some merit to considering that for pump or more of a rescue replacement in the future. Rural firefighting, obviously we have hydrants throughout the municipality, but there's lots of areas where we don't have close by hydrant source, so therefore rely on tanker supply and water. And we do definitely rely on mutual aid. Dutton Dunwich, as being a neighbor, would be one of our first calls, and vice versa. And I think a good comparison actually is Dutton is purchased and receiving late this year a tanker to actually replace one of their older pumpers. So for a single station department, they'll actually have they'll have a pumper and then actually 2 tankers and a rescue. So I think that that kind of is an indication of the importance of having that rural water supply, or that extra water, I guess. But I'm totally open and I totally understand the question of kind of shared resources, and sharing across the county or the west end of the county. I think down the road, another replacement, and that's something we have been looking at as in the big picture is because currently West Elgin has 7 apparatus, and we've eliminated the rescue van that, as you may recall, at Station 2, we surplused it, and we surplused the command trailer at Station 1. And I do think we are in a position to at minimum go down to 6, I think, apparatus. I know taking out the pickup truck discussion we just had, but strictly fire apparatus. I think there's merit there to combine in the future moving forward. And the next truck, I mean, a pumper tanker is something that we could look at. I just think it's important to keep that extra water, in my opinion, at this point.
Further questions?
Thank you very much.
Further questions, anyone? Well, thank you very much, Jeff, for that presentation.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So from now we'll be moving on to administration, department budget, and we're going to start with the buildings. I will speak to, in regards to council chambers renovations. So this, project was deferred last year, and last year's budget to this year's. I would like to bring this back, and the reason for it is desks and chairs that council and the public are using need to be desperately replaced. Most of them are broken, stained, and ripped. It's time to find an efficient way to replace council chamber furnishings. And with that being said, desks, they have been moved several times, and I'm afraid that if we touch them one more time, they're gonna fall apart. So this is up to council's consideration. $50,000, that amount was kind of estimated last year. We never had a chance to approach different vendors for quotes. We have local carpenter that could provide us perhaps pricing for board table or some kind of modular desks. We can also approach, there is a place in London, I believe, Lovers Furniture. They are able to connect us with perhaps purchasing gently used office furnishings. That's another option to make this project more affordable for our municipality. But again, it is council's decision on what you would like us to do. And in that amount, I would like to kind of paint this room, refresh it, and perhaps close this buffet window so there is more privacy when we have closed sessions. Or serving window. What do you call
Any
it?
questions from council on that? Yes. Teresa.
Through the chair, I don't want to spend $50,000 on desks. I do not care what I sit at. If it is plastic, I can't see us spending that when we're raising everything else. We're struggling for money, and we're in here 2 times a month, one time in December, one time in August, and one time in July. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I'd like to hear what my counterparts think.
Anyone else like to speak on that? Councillor Novakis?
Through the chair, I second what Teresa's saying, and I realize that it's probably not going to cost $50,000 to replace this, but it is hard when not going through it all to put $50,000 towards desks and chairs at this time.
Yes, councillor Statham.
Through the chair, I'm in agreement with that as well. I just don't, I would echo what Michelle's saying and Teresa, I don't really care what we're sitting at. I understand the concept, but it's a lot of money to spend on chairs and desks. And I think there's other places that we could invest that money.
Further information? Thank you. Councillor Denning?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. The only way that I would be comfortable making the investment of $50,000 in new furniture for this room is if we could somehow, some way easily have furniture that would also then lend this room to other groups being able to use it and have access to it. If there was some way to do that, where the furniture that we invested could also be used for other groups or folded easily away, if that was a possibility, then I'd say, yeah, the investment of $50,000 would absolutely be worth it to be able to make this space once again available. Despite the fact that I know that we have another space down the road that investments have been made. Obviously, there are many groups in the community that do miss this space. So if that's something that is possible, that doesn't add an additional burden to staff because you have to clear the room each time. If there's some hybrid model, then I'd say, yeah, it's worth considering.
Any further debate?
So
Okay, thank you.
that being said, would you like me to defer it or remove it from the capital budget?
Yes,
Through the chair, I think remove it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next item is municipal office parking lot extension, and I'll have Lee speak to that.
Thank you. So, through the chair, the municipal office parking lot extension was discussed back when renovations at the municipal building took place. For quite some time, we had known that there was a need for more parking space out at the municipal office. Staff are parking on the far side of the fire hall and walking across the front of the building. That poses problems. If there's a fire call, there's not enough room if firemen show up for a fire call. There's no place for them to park because that's taken up. And so the problem was to move parking, to get parking closer to the office. The old septic system used to sit in that grassed area out front. With the municipal office renovations, we were able to relocate. The tank is still there, but we pumped that around. There's a new bed out back that handles that for the whole complex now. And so that frees up that space out front. So the idea here is to simply if you come in the first driveway, so on the east side of the office, there's about 4 parking spaces there right out in front of the office windows. We would straighten that sidewalk out in front of the municipal building over, and we would put new parking spaces closer to the street there. We would extend that parking out towards the road into that grass area where the septic system used to be. So that would provide, accessible parking space with a proper sidewalk access right from that parking stall right to the front door. And then it would give additional spaces for staff and, hopefully open things up. So safety wise and just being able to provide that, to accommodate that accessible parking right there. And then there's along that east side of the office space there's some grass space that's not utilized. It is tight now with the size of equipment that we're using at Public Works, as that's a shared driveway with Public Works. The equipment's getting larger. So by shortening up that and moving those parking stalls closer to the building, that makes it a wider space in and out for the municipal equipment as well. So most of this, good portion of that will be done by municipal staff. They'll prepare the site, get it all ready. And then, it would be a paving contractor that would come in and make that hard surface.
that certainly all makes sense to me. We're in desperate need of extra car, parking. When you look There's only three and then the disability park. And, you know, I've seen people parking there when they really shouldn't. But they do because they don't want to walk or they got nowhere to park, or they don't want to park in front of the fire hall. So I think it's a good thing. Also moving the old park nearer the building slightly, you know, enlarges your driving. So yeah, it all sounds good to me personally. I'd like to know what council think.
Through the chair, I think it's good. I've come often and can't find a parking spot. So then I drive home.
Okay, I think we're all in favour. That's what it looks like to me, so thank
Okay.
you very much for you.
So I will stay with you then for the old town hall building, garage demolition, which is the third thing under buildings. We are currently working through, there is a committee formed to deal with the town hall in Rodney. And as part of that, we know that we need to remove the back portion, the old fire hall portion, the flat roofed portion from the back of the original town hall building. It's gotten to be quite disrepair. There's a lot of water getting in. What we need to do is we're going to have an engineer come in, that's being scheduled to assess how it was tied into the town hall. Because obviously if we take that structure off, we want to make sure that we're not in any way degrading the integrity of the original town hall building. So this $30,000 that's being allocated will cover an engineer's review, and it will cover demolition of the existing of that one-story old fire hall portion. And then any remedial work that needs to be done. There's obviously a couple of openings where you know, doorways, large doorways, access points from one into the other, they'll have to be framed in and closed off, and we do take that off. So that $30,000 will accommodate that work.
And in actual fact, that would create more parking for us, wouldn't it, on our own ground?
That would put that area back. The quotes that we've received from the demolition companies are to just basically put it back to gravel, to a flat gravel surface behind the old town hall. So I don't know if that not necessarily would be space that people would use for parking, but it obviously could be, and down the road, depending on what's decided with the town hall, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. It needs doing, I know that. It's years and years ago when I was in there, and it was leaking pretty bad then. So what the roof is actually like now, I wouldn't like to walk across it. Are there any questions from council on that? Okay. Oh, Councillor Denning, it does.
Let's, if we proceed with this, which I think makes sense, let's just make sure that everybody knows what's going on. And that it's just the garage.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Lee. Oh, sorry.
Just on that point, but not capital budget, I just noticed that other municipalities around us let things out before it even happens, like the garbage thing the other day. Before their counselors went to Roma, they sent out our counselors at Roma learning this year, instead of them learning we're somewhere. How much did that cost me out of my pocket? Same thing, Councillor Denning is saying, to let people know ahead of time what's going on. And so just eases staff time, eases our time when people aren't calling us and asking, and there's accusations flying around that aren't even warranted. So that'd be great if we could do that a little more.
Anything else? Thank you, Lee, for that update. What's next, please?
The next item is transit. So this is more, we're looking into the forecast. We just, last year, we purchased a brand new Fort County transit bus. Next replacement for that bus is scheduled for 2029. So at this point, we're forecasting $150,000. Any questions on that? Okay, we're gonna move on to Arena. Go ahead, Lee.
So I'll try and stick, especially when we get farther into like roads and things, I'll try and stick with current year and maybe forecast for next year if it ties in with this year. If you have a question about one of the numbers that you see for 3, 4, 8 years down the road, feel free to ask the question. So for under the arena for current year 2024, you'll see boards repair there. We just had a technician in this week who confirmed that the structural components of the boards are in good shape still. So what we're doing is we're looking at just replacing basically the board itself, the plastic, the poly sheeting that goes around there. That can be refastened to the structural components that are there, but obviously that's a key safety component when it comes to, if there's ever a crack or any deficiency with that and somebody hits that, it can cause serious injury, right? So it's good news this week. We've learned that the structural, we don't have to replace any of the structural components. It's just going to be the sheeting itself. So hopefully that's more than enough to do what we want to do. And then for next year, the 190,000 is for the dehumidification system that we've been looking at. We've been putting money away now for the last couple of years for that, and that's to keep, especially spring, fall, the apron seasons when it's mild outside and we're trying to keep it cold inside, and vice versa in the summertime when it's cool inside and it's really hot outside. It's just that condensation, that moisture in the building that led to the part of the issue was, that led to the mold that we had scenario that we had a few years ago. So we feel it's important to get that done, and the dehumidification system that's in the arena is getting older and needs to be replaced anyway. So we've set that aside or we're looking at that for 2025.
Yes, Councillor Novak.
Through the chair, just because it's on there and it's come up, I would like some clarification about the 1 million that we forecasted in 2027 for Craft Hockeyville. They received $250,000. I know that we moved some to reserve, but this is almost $500,000 more than what was discussed with the community. I'm just wondering if we had repairs that were going to need to be done anyways, and so that's where this $1 million has come from. And then it's a lot of money.
So through the chair, we felt it was important to put something in here. Obviously, there was, they were successful in $250,000 through Craft last year. The municipality did transfer some additional monies to that through the subcommittee of the Community Center Board of Management, who's working on a plan for renovations right now. They are kind of narrowing down the ideas of what it is that they would like to see happen with the building. It's certainly, you don't get into doing anything like this, even on a small scale. Accessibility plays in the minute we start doing anything to that building. We're going to have to make sure washrooms are all accessible. We're not doing renovations to the arena for $400,000. It's not going to happen. So, that this is just a placeholder right now that we have some money. Is there going to be grants that we're going to apply for over the next 4 years? Yes, certainly there is. Is there going to be money coming from our other municipal partners? Certainly there will be. Is there an opportunity for fundraising events, to handle some of this? So this is kind of with what is being planned right now, or kind of the direction that subcommittee is taking with what needs to be done to the building. This is kind of the general number that we're looking at. And maybe, and if ultimately that's where it comes out, that indeed is going to be roughly the cost of those renovations, then maybe that's not something that can be done in 27, right? Maybe that's something that's going to be done in 28 or 2030. I would hope that it doesn't take that long, but we felt that it was important just to have something in there. We don't want to just leave it and, not show it. So it's a forecast, right?
And then through the chair, just to follow up, just for the sake of argument, if the community were asked, we have about $250,000 of improvements right now that we've put on for the next 3 years. Could Craft Hockeyville just not be used for those? Does the arena need to be renovated?
Well, certainly the community group that made the application to Craft, that was not their intention, was to apply for that Craft money. Though those renovations that show up as more just you know, operating expenses, the boards have to be redone every so often. Dehumidification system is going to get old, it's going to need to be replaced. You know, that wasn't the intent of the group when they made that application. They were specific in that they felt that the arena was growing and that they needed more change room space. And, you know, like I said, washroom accessibility, we have to do those kinds of things anyways because it's public space. So
Anything? Yes,
Yes,
Councillor.
through the chair, and just, I think it's worth noting too, that with our agreement with Dutton Dunwich, that, you know, there's a cost sharing, formula, with these costs that are specific to the arena. So, I can't remember, if it's a capacity, calculation, but these are shared expenses.
Okay, oh, carry on.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
have they put anything in their budget towards it?
Yes, so 2024 arena budget was passed in November of last year.
Anything else on that? Magna, can we carry on, please?
Okay, so through the chair, the first line item we have here is the multi-use pad. And as council knows, we have been putting money aside for that over the last 2 seasons. With the removal of the old equipment at the playground in West Lauren, adjacent to the arena parking lot, we feel that it's important that we move forward with that project this year. And that is intended to provide an outdoor space for items such as pickleball, basketball, tennis. We had money set aside for work on the tennis courts. Not set aside, but there was a placeholder, if you remember, in last forecast for tennis replacement, but that's all going to get rolled into this multi-use pad. The next one here is the recreation center ceiling replacement. So if you've been in the rec center lately, you'll notice that the ceiling itself is showing signs of cracking. There is tape hanging from the ceiling that we try and keep trimmed off, but it's that is the tape that was used so the ceiling itself is drywall in the rec center. So originally last year, we had set some money aside. We thought that it was possible that we could get a contractor to go in and just repair the cracks. That turned out it was a bigger job. And so when we got a contractor in to look to see what, you know, obviously if there's a problem with cracking, it wasn't just on the seams, which was identified by the local contractor and said, you know, there's obviously a bigger issue going on here. So when that general contractor came in and we actually got up and took a good look at it and did some investigating, that ceiling was put up at the rec center without any vapor barrier above it. And whether that's, you know, because of the use at the time, but so there's an issue with it's the same thing. It's a moisture issue. It's the hot and cold between the room itself and the attic space above. So really the proper way of repairing that is to take down all the lighting, remove that drywall that's there, which in turn it's the old pink paper-backed insulation that's up there. That would all come out, vapor barrier, new drywall, replace the lighting and then blow in insulation to make the building more energy efficient. That we got a quote at that at about $96,000 to do that work. So, that's what the $100,000 for ceiling replacement is at the recreation center.
Can I ask you just one question, Lee? And I'm sorry because I should have asked it straight away because it was on the last question. Is there any life left in those playground equipment that is about to be removed?
The playground equipment has been removed. The old stuff has been removed, and that was because of the annual inspection that was done. Once a year, we have that playground equipment inspected by a third-party professional company that comes in. And the old equipment, there were many deficiencies. It would cost a lot of money to make that safe again. And with the, with having the brand new $200,000 set of accessible playground equipment within eyesight of the current structure, we also feel that that area is a good spot. This multi-use pad that's been considered for the last couple of years now, that area adjacent to the arena parking lot, we feel would be a good spot for that multi-use pad. For accessibility wise, it's hard surface parking. There's lots of parking there, especially the time of year that would be used, right? It's the off season for the arena. We have access to hydro at that, the park facility there that we can run hydro for lighting for evenings and stuff like that. So, we made room in that area that was where we are
So-
proposing that multi-use pad.
Okay, so what I was asking was, there's no life left in that and it'll go for scrap.
The playground equipment's been removed, yes, for now.
Yes.
Through the chair, just because you brought it up and I was looking for clarification, when a municipality renovates, even say a park, so if we were to renovate that park, we would have to meet AODA standards. Is that correct? Right? So if we were to even add new equipment, we would have had to invest in AODA standards for the entire park.
Correct.
Thank you.
And just I guess to point out that, that equipment, although it may have met the standard 20+ years ago when it was installed, even if it was in the same condition as it was the day they put it in, would not meet today's standards.
You've
So
answered my question.
the fact,
thank you.
right, the fact that that it is over 20 years old, there was some serious deficiencies identified by the last annual inspection, and and that we feel that area is can be repurposed for something else.
Thank you.
So down the list here, you'll see in 25, we've put in here for some new tables for at the recreation center. That's approximately 10 plastic tables. For Parks and Recreation, so pick up 2 replacement under Parks and Recreation. So we have money in here. This is kind of what Chief MacArthur alluded to a little bit ago, that we may look, we were speaking about this today, that we may look at shifting slightly what we were planning on doing with vehicles, to have a vehicle that could be dual purpose, that could be utilized by fire department, by fire and by municipal staff as well. So we're going to leave that, we'll show that vehicle here for now, but that new vehicle may not necessarily fall under Parks and Recreation. You'll see farther on in the presentation that we do have a vehicle listed for our water utilities department, which is in dire need of being replaced. And speaking with the various vehicle companies, there is advantage to purchasing more than one vehicle, like a fleet discount. So that's why we're trying, if you see through the forecast budget, through the various departments, whether it be utilities or roads or recreation, we try, and if there is vehicle replacement to be made, we're trying to kind of line those up in years so that we're making, if we have to, we're purchasing a couple vehicles in 1 year versus purchasing one every year, because there is some financial advantage to that.
Yes.
Through the chair, as it's getting closer that we're all going to have to start moving to electric, have we been giving any thought to how we are going to slowly switch out our fleets? Because is it 2030 that everything is supposed to be?
2035, I believe, is
Okay.
is currently the all
Is it-
electric.
At 2030, you have to start paying more. I'm just wondering that seems to be getting closer. I'm just wondering if that's something that we are considering or looking at.
Actually, we, in speaking, the salesperson that we've been talking to, is gonna get us some pricing. Now, my question to them was, certainly municipalities receive a fairly substantial discount when it comes to the purchase of vehicles. But because this is new to us, we don't know, and this is what they're looking into, is if those incentives would be applied to something like an EV versus, like if we're gonna pay a lot more for that electric vehicle, maybe that's something that we wait and do. Because the trucks that we're purchasing now will be life cycled right before that 2035 date. So
Well, hopefully by then, they'll have their act together a little better, because I was seeing on television that they were losing 40% of their mileage in cold weather, which is not a good thing. They've certainly got to iron things like that out.
So that's something that it is on our radar. We are looking into it. They're getting us more information for that. And then we can go from there. Line painter replacement. So that is the painter that our Parks and Recreation Department uses for the soccer fields, at the sports field, lining the sports fields. It is getting old. It is in need of replacement. So that's a piece of equipment that handles that. And then the pool liner repair, which is the last one here that's kind of in next year. We're at the point where we've been trying over the last year and a half to narrow down and find there is a problem with the liner that's there. We believe now that it's probably more age related. If some of you remember that back years ago, they actually made that pool shallow. They filled the deep end in. So when they did that work, they replaced those liners aren't like a typical pool liner you'd have in your backyard pool where it's all one piece. These are panels that they put in and plastic weld together. When that work was done, they replaced the liner on the floor of the pool, but they never replaced the liner on the sidewalls. They reused that liner. So that sidewall liner is original to that pool, which is now over 20 years old. So what we're looking at doing is we're working with a company that deals with these types of liners on a regular basis in that style of pool. And, we're looking at possibly rolling the dice and taking one more year this summer with the liner as it is, and then putting some money aside this year, because obviously a full liner replacement is going to be expensive.
Yes, Councillor Novakis.
Through the chair, I'm just, in 2026, we have the bridge at the marina being repaired. I've been approached by a number of people. I'm just looking for insurances that we all agree that it can wait until 2026 to be fixed.
Yes, it can wait till 2026 to be replaced. The bridge, if you look at it now, it has sagged a tiny bit on that one corner. That's partially due to the materials that were used back when it was first put in. The abutment, it wasn't set on concrete. It was actually pressure treated wood ties that were put in and then backfilled. Unfortunately, there was some heavy equipment taken across there that the municipality wasn't aware of, and that's what caused the settling. But that said, myself and the park supervisor have looked at that recently, and you know, with a small amount of work over the next year or two, just to make sure that structurally it's not going to fall into 16 Mile Creek or anything. It's as long as we make sure that the boards are sound, that people are walking on it, and the railing, you know, that if there's spindles that are broke or cracked, that we replace them. You know, we feel quite confident that we can get that through. And, you know, looking forward to 26, probably the best bet is to look at a steel walkway, a steel bridge that could have new abutments put in and then have it set in place. And then that would be something that, yes, it would be expensive, but it would be something that would last a lot longer than what we have now. But if you look underneath that bridge, there's huge steel I-beams there that are still setting, you know, into the bank. So it's not like it's going anywhere. The fact that it dips a little bit in that one corner is more a product of the fact that there was something taken across it that shouldn't have been.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'll keep going. So Port Glasgow Trailer Park is the next one here. So we have the $15,000 here that's being carried forward from 2023. And that is slated to happen in April, and that is the refurbishment. So that is water and a drain for the small kitchenette and HVAC for the bingo hall. 2025, that $50,000 for anybody that's been in the park, you'll see on the septic bed number 1, which is the one that's centrally located in the park, which was the original one. To go to that style, it has 4 wooden sheds that stand there. The new way of doing that now is to put that underground. We have the same system in bed 3, which is up by the food booth. But if you look out in the grass area, you'll just see the little green lids. All of that is below ground now. Those wooden sheds, those 4 wooden sheds are starting to get in tough shape, like the wood boards, because they're wet all this time inside, right? So we've done what we can. We're going to paint them up for this year. Next year, we would look at putting those below ground, going to that new style system, and we have to do something with them anyways. So that would tidy that whole area up, and they would last a lot longer because everything's plastic. So, and then finally, for this year, we've got $350,000 in here for replacement of the washroom facility that sits closest to the food booth, right up at the front of the park. And that's the original washroom there. It's not only used by park residents, it does have shower facilities in it, but it's also used, you know, people that are coming to visit the food booth, people that are renting the pavilion or the dance hall for functions. All that stuff is all, you know, go to that washroom. So certainly there's no way of making the current building, the current structure accessible. So it would mean removing that structure entirely and putting a new structure similar to that of what's in the back corner up front there. And that would be washrooms, shower facilities, and it would be 100% accessible.
Yes.
Through the chair, I had asked about this because it's a large expenditure, and I realize that there are probably drawings that need to be done in time. I'm wondering, due to the fact that we have to push it back, if it would be better to do this in 2 stages. So do the initial planning, drawing, and then next year look at deferring the renovation costs.
Yep. So we had planned on doing the engineering and the drawings. You know, once budget is approved, we would get that process started. There's no way that we would have drawings and have a tender and have a builder and have permits and have this thing done before camping season, before the park opens. So certainly the thought process here was not to try and get it done this spring. The thought process was to get the engineering stuff done. You know, whether we start that, it could be tendered out, whether we start that in the fall of this year or whether we start that you know, very early in the spring of 24. My intention was to have it done for the opening of the 25, have it done for the opening of the 2025 season.
So through the chair, Meg, if you could ask that, so to leave the $350,000 makes sense, or do you shrink it to the actual costs that we will be putting out in 2024?
So through the chair, so this is just an estimated amount, just like Lee mentioned, drawings, architectural drawings, are not done yet. So we don't really know what the actual cost is going to be. So I agree with Councillor, Navakis. We can, perhaps, budget, engineering and architectural costs for this year, and then once we have closer cost estimates for the construction of the washrooms, perhaps put that in the forecast and budget it for 2025.
I think timing is really good for this because we've got the swings and the playgrounds there and they all access that. They've got nowhere else to go to the washroom. So it really wants to be done. It doesn't want to be done in the middle of the summer where nobody's got access to go anywhere. So I'm sure Lee will see to that.
So we're on to Public Works now. So the first one there, although it is a big number, there is a bit of a bright spot. As you remember, last year we had 700,000 in the budget for a grader. We've actually come in just over 50,000 under budget. So we've reduced that to cover that actual cost the grader is in. It's in London. We're just waiting for the snow equipment and it should be delivered late February. So the next one here, most of you remember we are in a program with John Deere, whereas we purchase a new tractor every year. I don't think you'd get a program like that now, so we certainly don't want to let it go. To be able to purchase a new tractor every year and have warranty and never have to worry about tires or repairs, you know, for $10,000 a year is quite reasonable. So we include that. You see that show up each and every year. Truck 8 here at the 350 and 25. The one thing I do want to mention with that, and this will be something that will come back to council for your approval, so this is a tandem axle dump truck with snow equipment. Truck 8 is a 2009, so it's currently, this will be 15 years old this year. This council will have to make a decision to order that truck sooner than later, knowing full well that we probably won't receive it until late 2025 or possibly even early 2026. Right now, they're looking at 2 years is what we're being told, for once we place that order. So we're showing that 350 in the forecast for 2025, but I will be coming back with a report to get your permission to go ahead and purchase that truck this year. Truck 11 is a single axle utility dump truck that's used in Public Works. It does need to be replaced. We have increased that amount from what was in the forecasted amount last year. And the reason for that is currently we have 4 trucks that service all the roads, all the hardtop roads when it snows. 2 of those tandems service the main county roads, the main arterial roads. 1 tandem truck services the lower class municipal roads. And then we have 1 single axle truck that handles the 2 towns. So that truck when it snows, when that truck leaves, it leaves the yard in the morning, it comes to West Lorne, does all the streets in West Lorne. It goes out to the lake, it does Eagle Court, it goes into Port Glasgow and it does Douglas Line and all that stuff there. Then it comes back into Rodney and it does all the streets in Rodney. That's a lot for 1 truck. That driver really has to work to get around that route. With the development that we're looking at in the near future, there's no way that 1 truck will be able to handle all the urban streets. So the idea is to purchase a truck as we're replacing truck 11, to purchase a truck that's a couple sizes larger than what we currently have and order it with plow equipment. so that that truck can help pick up and share the load with that truck that's currently doing all those routes. And as we see the increase in development, it's something that's gonna be needed. So we're just trying to get out ahead of that. So we're 60% confident that if ordered sooner than later, we might see that this year. If not, it would be sometime early in the first or second quarter of 2025. So that 225 would just have to be carried forward. But most of the companies right now, we would pay for that when the truck is received. We don't have to pay for that upfront. Even with those delays, most companies are carrying that charge. 25, we have a roadside mower. That's pretty standard for replacement cycle for them. We're just keeping on cycle. We're going to complete the public works shed this year. All that's left for that is the one that we renovated. We have to get heat put into that building. So that will finish that project. That's a carryover. Blacks Road reconstruction. So this is the portion that's not under the ICIP grant. So this would be Blacks Road from Queens Line to Highway 401. There's a little bit of ditch work left to do there. And then the plan is to hard surface that road. It would be surface treatment from Queens Line to Highway 401. And that's going to tie into the bigger picture of the ICIP grant, which we received to redo the bridge and the culvert north of 401 on Blacks. And the last part of that project is to also hard surface that road, surface treatment from 401 to Johnston Line. So we would essentially be creating that link from Queens Line all the way to Johnston Line would be hard surfaced all the way through. And that's what those two projects of Blacks Road reconstruction, Queens to 401, and then the very last line there, Capital Culvert 6 replacement, Blacks at Kintyre, that 230,000. That will finish both of those projects. Walker Street reconstruction in West Lorne. So Walker Street east of Mary Street. So if you go down Walker, when you go past Mary, that stretch of road is in dire need of replacement, and it's not just shave and pave, it's full depth. So we're looking at doing the engineering for that this year in 2024, and then doing the reconstruction in 2025. And that would be a full depth reconstruction similar to what we saw in Rodney a couple summers ago. The road would be taken right out. We would put all new storm drains in. We would upgrade the water service down there. And there is a possibility that we would look at sanitary. That stretch of Walker Street, is currently not serviced by the municipal sanitary system. So there's a possibility of expanding that to serve those residents down there. So that's what that is for. A culvert replacement. So we have a large drain culvert in one of the municipal drains on Silver Clay Line just east of Furnival Road. The bottom is rotted out of that culvert. Under the Drainage Act, in most cases, the culvert under the road it's 100% paid for by the road authority. So we've budgeted to replace that culvert in that municipal drain this year. And then Meg, do you want to talk about the charging stations?
Sure. So this project was approved by council, I believe, in December or January. The application deadline is end of this month. We have the application ready. It hasn't been submitted, but it will be submitted probably tomorrow. So the estimated cost for that project is $185,000 for 2024 and another $125,000 for next year. Grant application, the maximum grant application for 6 charging stations is $180,000. This project, we kind of divided into phase 1 and 2. So phase 1 will consist of constructing parking space. And purchase of one a level 3 charging station, which is the fast one, and two level 2 charging stations. And then in 2025, we're planning on purchasing additional 3 charging stations, the same thing, one level 3 and 2 level 2. The only catch about this grant application is the project has to be fully completed in order to submit for funding. So, you know, there is a way of borrowing money from the reserves for the time being until we get the reimbursement. So that's what we're planning on doing. If you, for the source, if you look on your Schedule B, I indicated so where the money is going to come from. So we're planning on borrowing $125,000 from the reserves, and then $60,000 will be coming from general taxation.
Have the sites been fixed for these?
So the site, proposed site for the charging station is right in front of the electronic sign in West Lorne. We own that strip of land. And the idea is to create not just the parking space for the electric charging station, but extend that space for our residents to park as well. Are there any questions?
Yes, Councillor Lennon.
Just through the chair, thank you. So with regards to the EV stations, what's the return on investment? For instance, like there's a charge for using these stations, right? And then we get that money, not the Hydro Commission, correct?
That's correct. We're gonna own the infrastructure, and we will be collecting, the municipality will be collecting revenue. But as far as the rates, I cannot answer that question at this point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, thank you.
Go ahead, Lee.
So that handles Public Works. Rodney Sewer, mechanical upgrades here. So as you're aware, we are doing mechanical upgrades at the Rodney wastewater treatment plant. That is currently just in the final stages of design. Should be ready for tender by late March, early April, with work to be started later this year. So we do have money in the budget, 2024 budget, to start that, and then 2025 to make sure that that gets completed, that those upgrades are completed. West Lorne Sanitary, we have sanitary manhole repair. That's in West Lorne, specifically to Main Street, through West Lorne. We have half a dozen sanitary manholes that are sinking. The issue there is that years ago when they were built, they used bricks to make the riser. So you have the actual concrete structure, then you have a riser that can be anywhere from 18 to 30 inches tall, and that's made up of bricks, and then that steel lid assembly sits on top. So over the years, those bricks, with water, moisture, freeze and thaw, those bricks get old, they crumble. That's what causes that sinking. The county's reconstruction of Main Street through West Lorne is currently slated for 2028. Fingers crossed, but we feel that those assemblies can't wait for another 4 years. So we're gonna replace them this year, and if done properly, that's just a matter of when they come through to do the reconstruction, they can just literally take it off, do what they need to do, set it back on, and it's done. Pump station rebuild, these next two items are items that were identified by Aqua. Pump station rebuild is the pumping station here on Marsh Line. They've set aside money this year and next year to rebuild the two main pumps that sit within that pump station. And then a tie-in from the filter bypass the lagoon. That was carried over from 2023. Upon investigation last year, they determined that it was a little bit more integral than what they had first thought. Therefore, they've carried it forward and added a bit of money to it to make sure that that gets done this year. Sidewalks and streetlights. Sidewalks, we're going to, this year, we're gonna get that sidewalk from along Graham Road, the south end down to Marsh Line and then west to the entrance to Todd Place is gonna get done. And then moving into water, every year, the municipality currently has to fund a portion of any water line extension that is brought forward. So there is a placeholder in there each and every year that would cover our portion if somebody was to come forward and ask for a water line extension. The automated meter reading software and hardware, that $160,000 will purchase the remaining radios that are required to complete that project. So that will bring everything, all 5 water routes will be online to be read via radio instead of manually. Along with that, especially in Rodney and West Lorne, where there are some of the original older water meters, there will need to be some meter replacements in order to facilitate that. So we've upped that to 35,000 to cover those meter costs those meter changes that we need to do as part of that program. And the other one there is truck replacement. That's the pickup in utilities department that is in dire need of replacement. So we'll look at replacing that. And the last 2 that are out a year, but just to mention, you'll see there that we've put money in for the replacement of that water line on Walker Street. So we're lining that up with what you saw in Public Works, that Walker Street reconstruction. And then Chestnut Street from Graham to Ridge, the water line there is an older 3-inch water line that is extremely difficult to source parts for. It's actually almost impossible to source parts for now. So the idea with that is that we would tie into the new water main at Graham Road. There's actually a stub there at Chestnut Street. Instead of routing that under the street, we would route it just off the edge of the street under the boulevard on the north side, which is where the current sidewalk is. That sidewalk is getting older and should be replaced. With the development that's coming at the corner of Ridge and Chestnut, we anticipate that there'll be more people wanting to walk from that area out to Graham Road. So we'll put the new water main under the boulevard. It saves us money. We don't have to cut into the road, and then we'll replace and put full width new sidewalk in from Graham down to that corner that we can maintain through the winter months as well. So that would be a project for 2025.
Yes, Councillor Novakis.
Sorry. This is probably really a dumb question, but we have almost $400,000 for the sidewalks from West Lorne. Like, so it's $150,000 this year and then $50,000. So that.
It's a placeholder. So this year we would typically, when you see that little notation there, we would typically try and put in what we're planning on doing this year.
Yeah.
But we do put a placeholder in every year. So we would look at doing sidewalk replacement each and every year at various locations throughout the
Okay,
municipality.
I was like, oh my God, I did not realize sidewalks were so expensive. Thank you.
They are expensive, but that 50,000 each year is to replace sidewalks at various locations in both villages.
Right, thank you.
Are there any additional questions, comments? Is there anything council would like to remove from the capital budget?
Yes, Councillor.
Nothing, it's hard to know until we actually see what the proposed tax rate will be. So my question is, this all looks fine and this looks very practical. But if we get down the road where we are finalizing budget and we are at a point where we have to make some considerations. Are we able to then perhaps make adjustments to this capital budget as well as the other budgets in order to satisfy our concerns?
Absolutely. So this is just the preliminary capital budget. Councils, we're still going to revisit this issue once the capital is incorporated with operating budget. At this point, 17% of capital budget that you just that we have just reviewed with you will be incorporated into our operating budget. So the money's going to have to come from the general tax rate.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? That concluded? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So, could I, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from M. Badura, CAO Treasurer, regarding the 2024 capital budget for information and discussion purposes.
Okay, could I have a mover? Councillor Denning. Seconded, Councillor Statham. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next item is 9, consent agenda. No items for the consent agenda received. So. And then we go to 10, which is staff report, stamp 10.1, planning. McLeod Court Subdivision Development Agreement. Robert, could you please talk on that one, please?
I will. I'll go through this fairly quickly. Council will recall that back in October of this year, a small 10-lot subdivision was approved off of the end of Finley Street, north of Gilbert. The developer is now ready to proceed, and we've been working with them over the past couple of weeks to get the development agreement sorted out. Mr. Gosnell has also outlined has gotten the estimate on the installation of the road and the services and determined what the securities will be for that development agreement as well. So that's been passed along to the developer. So the agreement's been drafted up. Everybody's happy with it, so we're ready to proceed. So unless there's questions, actually, I'll answer one question. I think everybody probably wants to know about this is how soon are we going to see this? The developer would like to move forward on this quickly. They would like to start work likely in the coming days. We actually have set up a pre-construction meeting for next week with the parties involved and staff at West Elgin to review before they start. So you'll likely see ground being broken in the very near future.
Right, thank you very much for that report. Anything from council? Seeing none, could I have the recommendation, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Robert Brown, planner, related to the required development agreement for the McLeod Court subdivision, and that West Elgin Council hereby authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the development agreement and register said agreement on title.
Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Denning, seconder, Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Already gone. Okay, so we go to 10.2, and it's the clerk's community grant applications. Now, are we doing them or are we not?
Sure, certainly through the chair. This report was just put back on. It was deferred at the last meeting. However, I do believe the consensus is still to defer it until the operating budget. So within the recommendation, we can have it as deferred until the operating budget, if that is what council wishes to do.
Okay, so do we need a recommendation on that?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the community grant application report from Terry Toshik clerk, and that council defer until the operating budget is presented.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Tellier. Seconder. Councillor Navakis. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we go down to administration and finance. Employers' remuneration. I think that would have been Magna to talk on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this matter kind of refers back to our organizational review, which received initial approval from the council during the last meeting in January. So as you recall, Mr. Kelly Linton presented the findings and recommendations of the organizational review. And he basically he drew attention to the unsustainable workload, and he emphasized the adverse impact on organizational management. Therefore, with that in mind, a new position was created, the Manager of Corporate Services, Treasurer, who will be responsible for overseeing Finance Department, Information Technology, Transit, and Asset Management.
Yeah.
So given that this is a fairly new position in our organization, I have approached ML Consulting, who is currently conducting a pay equity review on our entire organization. At this point, it was recommended that the pay grid for the new position of Manager of Corporate Services be aligned with the pay grid for the Manager of Operations and Community Services. And so basically we can start the recruitment process right away. And then once pay equity review is completed, you know, the pay rate be adjusted accordingly. Second item in my report that I am bringing to council is to consider changing the position of Administrative Assistant Accounting Clerk to revising that position to Accounting Clerk. The reason for renaming that position and changing pay grid is currently with the current pay grid and the job title, we cannot find skilled individuals that that are able to basically do this job. So the idea is to increase pay grid by approximately $9,000 a year and refined the name of the position to just the accounting clerk without changing any responsibilities or job description for that position. Does anybody have any questions? And I highlighted pay grid changes in Schedule A. They're highlighted in red.
Councillor Navakis.
Through the chair, I did reach out to Kelly just for some clarifications. I love the report. I'm a big believer in staffing to achieve greatness. In that though, we have three management positions and we have not reflected it yet in our pay grade. So we have the Manager of Corporate Services, Manager of Operation Community Services, and then there was the new department created under the clerk, but we have kept it at the same pay grade. In Kelly's opinion, they are all level on the management. So that position in theory should also be paid more. So I don't know if we make that change now. We make that change when we implement our new organizational review.
Yes, so at this point, we're not planning any doing any further changes. And the reason for it is the purpose why we're doing it earlier than waiting for the pay equity review is completed is we're in desperate need of those two positions. Our senior management's workload is unsustainable. And in order to speed up the process, we have to have a pay grade approved by council. As far as other positions, there is going to be adjustments. We anticipate adjustments on every level. And once that's completed, will be done accordingly.
Which I understand, there was a third position created though under our organizational review, and that was the person who was in charge of community services. Am I correct in this statement that there were 3 managers under you as the CAO? And then Jeff, the fire department. So if we're going to move forward with that organizational review, I think it was step 2 or 3 that those management positions were created. So if that's happening in 2024, wouldn't we have to identify that in the budget even before we look at pay equity?
Right, but it's hard to identify in the budget without knowing what that number is going to be. That's why we have no.
Well,
So
but
it's like-
we've chosen 2 numbers for the other 2 managers' positions. So if we have a third manager, one would assume they should be being paid the same or near the same as the level that they're on.
Right.
Shouldn't they?
Yes, yes, but I suggest that we wait until pay equity review is done. Once pay equity review is done, those jobs will be adjusted, their pay will be adjusted
And
as
then
of
we can-
January 1st.
And then we can adjust that
So-
position.
Yes.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Tellier?
So if we do it later when the pay equity is done, then it's not in our budget though. How do we work it into our budgets? What I'm trying to say, so it's not a surprise later.
So there will be, I'm currently working with our consultant to come up with additional cost that we might incur once pay equity review is done. Right now we're at early stages of a pay equity review, and that number is unknown, but within a month, I'm hoping, that we could come up with some kind of estimate that we can incorporate in our budget.
So there was talk about giving our clerk more responsibilities.
Yeah,
So obviously the pay grade will change.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Anyone else got questions that need to be answered right now? So with these jobs, I will say, with these jobs that are going to be advertised, I presume they're going to be advertised. Are they going to ease your burden quite a lot?
Yes, those 2 positions are very much needed. Accounting clerk position. Currently, we have a temporary help. The reason why the position was not filled last year was because we anticipated changes through organizational review. Unfortunately, luckily, this position was not affected. That's why the recruitment process was kind of delayed. But now that the review is done, I recommend that both jobs be posted as soon as possible.
So what I'm trying to say is, as and when they're successful, will it take a burden off you because you've been doing too much?
Yes, yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Need more questions? Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to, oh, actually, there's please, if you don't mind.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from M.
Sorry.
Badura, CAO Treasurer regarding the 2024 Employee Remuneration Amendment, and that West Elgin Council approves the revisions as presented in Schedule A and authorizes staff to start the recruitment process.
Okay, can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Navakis, seconder, councillor Denning. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. Committee and board reports, none received. Accounts. I think we just go to your recommendation, please.
That the mayor and treasurer are hereby authorized to sign payment voucher number 1A amounting in $133,613.59 in settlement of general, road, water, and arena accounts, including EFT number 7778 to 7793, online payments number 1309 to 1317, and payroll pay period 1.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask you the same old question. Have we got the money?
Yes, we do have.
Thank you very much. So
Providing that answer.
Councillor Denning moves, seconded. Councillor Statham. Thank you very much. All in favour? Yeah, it's carried. Right, consideration of items requiring discussion. Okay, the request from the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors, AOs, potential mistakes, but I can't get my word round. Equipment and operator courses. Who's got to speak on this one, please?
This was just a letter that was received from AORs, as it says, regarding potential for municipal equipment operators course, asking for councils to consider passing the recommendation that is included in the agenda. And it is certainly entirely up to council whether they would like to proceed with providing this resolution.
Okay, so has anybody got anything to say on it at all? Yes.
Through the chair, I think Councillor Denning had brought this up before, that any encouragement we could do for our government on offering training programs to help the municipal level. We're behind, so I support this.
Have the recommendation then, please. Has anybody else got anything to say?
No, we discussed it a while ago.
No.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. The recommendation is whereas municipal public works departments from across the province of Ontario provide invaluable services to our communities, ensuring the health and safety of all residents. And whereas if it was not for our municipal public works employees from across the province of Ontario maintaining our public road systems, our communities would not be able to function as emergency personnel could not respond to calls, school buses could not get our children to schools, residents would not be able to get to work, school, or appointments, and many more basic functions would not be able to happen. And whereas municipal public works departments are already feeling the impacts of a labor shortage, which will only be exacerbated over the next 3 to 5 years, which will cause levels of service municipalities are able to provide to ensure the health and safety of our residents to decrease. And whereas there is currently no provincial-wide course that properly trains potential municipal public works employees specifically relating to municipal heavy equipment, therefore it be resolved that the Corporation of the Municipality of West Elgin supports the work of the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors to develop a municipal equipment operator course to address this issue, and that the municipality of West Elgin calls on the province of Ontario's Ministry of Labor, Training, Immigration, and Skilled Trades to fully fund the municipal equipment operator course in 2024 through the Skills Development Fund, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Minister of Labor, Training, Immigration, and Skilled Trades, David Piscini, Municipality of West Elgin's Member of Provincial Parliament, Honorable Rob Flack, and the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors.
Well, thank you very much for that. So can any comment on it? No, okay. So moved, councillor Denning, seconded, Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we go to 14. council inquiries and announcements. I do have one. And that's on the 6th of February. Rob Flack has called it, or is calling in conjunction with the county, a special meeting. And they want us to give us our needs for West Elgin as my job. And there's 7 municipalities. He'll be listening to 7 people talking. And we want to go with some numbers that we can put realistically. And I can say, I can read off and everybody understands. And the reason for what we're asking. So I'd really like some help on this one. I obviously can't do it on my own. So I'd like to have a special meeting next week. If we could certainly work it in, because this meeting's on the 6th of February and it goes from 9 till 12 o'clock. So there's going to be a lot of talking done. And so I'd really appreciate it if everybody can think of things or whatever it is, and Magna will put it back on you again. And we need to come up with some figures, what West Elgin needs, and it to our advantage. And I hope Lee maybe can put his pennies in and help us out on that one too. Because we're talking of West Elgin here, we're not talking of, it's everybody. And so our needs for the future. So if we can sort of agree on a date or a time when we can do that. I mean, we do have Port Glasgow. I wonder if we could do it after that, if you've got the time. I mean, it hasn't got to be a long meeting, as long as we got some figures together. And so that date was on, that was on the Wednesday, wasn't it? Wednesday at 10 a.m. I don't know whether, the rest of council could make it. But we're going 10 a.m. for the Port Glasgow Trailer Park.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say, how long is that going to last? Hour and a half?
Let's say.
Okay. So we could make our next meeting at 11 o'clock if that was possible. And that'll move our meeting on because we want to move that meeting on.
That work for anybody else?
No, that's why I'm going around the room and asking if anybody can do that.
Through the chair, was the meeting scheduled already for Wednesday, 10 a.m.?
Yes.
I haven't put it in the calendar yet, but that is what the committee.
Okay.
Port Glasgow Trailer Park.
So perhaps if we change the location to the council chambers, because we're going to be pressed on time if one meeting is at the municipal office and then.
Yeah, then
The other-
flying over here. You're right. Can you make it? Can Bill make it?
I have a budget meeting.
Okay.
starting At 9, that's supposed to go to 12, but they never do. I can excuse myself at 11 and participate via Zoom.
Can you? Thank you very much. Can you? Thank you. And I know Michelle can do it. And can you, Deputy Mayor, do it? Thank you. So Lee, can you have a little time? Thank you. And Magna? Okay. Okay, so that's our special meeting date, 11 o'clock. Next Wednesday. Thank you very much. If we can come up with something. Anything else from the council inquiries and announcements? I'll go to 15 then, upcoming. Yep.
do have our update for,
Oh, of course, please. Very interested to listen to it.
All right, through the chair. So the clerk and I attended Roma. Said there was the largest amount of delegates they ever had. I don't know, didn't seem that way, but a lot of voting members, I guess. And we tried to attend different sessions so that we were bringing back different information. So sessions I attended were Aboriginal, having relations with our Aboriginal communities around us. Aqua, having different ideas how to work with Aqua and what they can bring to our community. What did you attend, Terry? Trying to think.
So I attended exploring solutions to increase housing in the rural context, addressing, I caught the second portion of addressing municipal staff retention and recruitment challenges, which was an extremely full session. I also went to the Aqua session and then legal challenges to Ontario's Drainage Act, which really focused on the issues with the CN rail. Yes, and then the profound demographic shift that's underway and local solutions.
Now, did you want to talk about the delegation or shall we wait until Heritage Home sees it first?
No, that's fine. We had a delegation with the Honorable Mr. Flack. That went really, really well, and his staff. Talking about housing in our community and how we're ready with the project if we could get that on the way. We have infrastructure, plans, a building committee, a relationship with the municipality and those committees and the manager of the buildings in our area. We explained that our one building, Councillor Denning and I had a Zoom meeting, that our one building that is Brent Garrett, I guess was the wording, housing here on Main. Because the demographics, some of the seniors are not enjoying their time living there at this time. And so it'd be great if we had blank space, and we have different ideas and things that we could use in our community, and talked about Heritage Homes as well, if that was something we could do. The staff really directed us to a lot of grants and different levels of grants from different tiers that we could look into. And yeah, we took lots of notes and it was a great 15 minutes. That's all they give you.
Okay, so
But
it's
it was
gonna
really,
be-
really encouraging,
it's
really,
gonna
really.
be very helpful down the road.
Yes, extremely
Thank you very
encouraging. So
much for that.
anything you want to add, Terry?
I think that's everything. They really did ask a lot of questions. They seemed very interested in the proposal. We reiterated that the ground, that it's shovel ready, everything is ready to go. We just need that extra support. So I did get the contact of the regional director for municipal housing, and I'm going to follow up with him to get a couple more contacts and maybe just a little bit more direction on which way to go to look for some funding.
And did you explain it's going to free houses up in the town?
We did. We let them know that it will free up some houses to bring in some of those younger families, couples just starting out that maybe want to stay in the area, and certainly relieve some of the pressure off the long-term
And it's
long-term
that
care
good, there's
system.
a huge waiting list
Yes,
and it's right next to the health.
yeah.
So it's a win-win, really.
Yes,
Thank you
Deputy
very
Mayor
much.
Tellier did a great job at explaining all of that as well, all the amenities that are available within the community center and the community itself.
Thank you very much. I regret I couldn't make it, but I really wanted to, but it's one of them things, and sounds like you two did a great job. Thank you. So, upcoming meetings, please.
This is just again, a review that I like to put on, so everyone's aware. January 29th, Heritage Homes at 1 p.m. February 6th, we have our first Tri-County Water Board meeting of the year, which will be at 7 o'clock. It'll take place right here in the council chambers. And February 8th will be our council meeting, our regular council meeting. Our arena board will meet, I didn't put the date on there, at 9 a.m. And economic development, Michelle, I didn't put that date on there as well. What was the date on that?
Can you explain where the economical development is going to have its meeting?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going on to 16, which is bylaws. Is that correct? 16.1, 2024-04, zoning amendment. 23625 Pioneer Line.
That bylaw 2024-04 being a bylaw to amend the municipality of West Elgin's comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2015-36 for property at 23625 Pioneer Line be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Move, okay. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded by Councillor Navakis. All in favour? It's carried, thank you. 16.2, 2024-05.
That bylaw 2024-05 being a bylaw to establish rules of procedure for the meetings of council, council committees, and the board of the corporation of the municipality of West Elgin, and repeal bylaw 2023-77 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
The mover, please. Councillor Denny. Seconded. Councillor Statham. All in favour? Carried. Sixteen point 2024-06, fees and charges amendment.
Thank you. I did include a report with this one, just that there was some typos on the first one that was submitted. Did council have any questions at all with that? Okay. So the recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Terry Toshuk, clerk, regarding the 2024 fees and charges amended, and that bylaw 2024-06 being a bylaw to provide for various fees and charges for the municipality of West Elgin for 2024, and repeal bylaw 2023-107 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Councillor Navakis. Seconder. Councillor Denny, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. Okay, 16.4, 2024-07, agreement with Oakview Land Use Planning. Recommendation, please.
That bylaw 2024-07, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of West Elgin and Oakview Land Use Planning for the provision of planning services, and repeal bylaw 2022-55 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Councillor Bacchus, seconder. Councillor Denning, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. 16.5, 2024-08, agreement for shared services.
That bylaw 2024-08 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the corporation of the township of Southwold and the corporation of the municipality of Dutton Dunwich for the purposes of a GIS and asset management coordinator shared services agreement be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Navakis, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. Now, closed session. I'm going to I'm going to call it to order.
I'll read the recommendation to go
Please.
into closed. Yeah, just before we do, I'll just mention that the Arena Board meeting is February 14th at 9:00 a.m. So now the recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby proceeds into closed session at 7:22 PM to discuss matters pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
You okay?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Telly,
Mhm.
seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. Just wait for things to be turned. Oh, so the adjourn, we move back out of close?
I'll read the report from
Please.
closed. Council reconvenes into open session at 7:56 PM. Council received items pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and council provided staff with direction to proceed as required.
Yeah. Do you know, you don't need a seconder, no, for that. Okay, so we go to 19, which is confirming bylaw 2024-09.
That bylaw 2024-09 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on January 25th, 2024 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Okay, a mover, please. Councillor Denning. Seconder. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. So that brings us on to 20, which is adjournment.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourn at 7:57 PM to meet again at 11 AM on Wednesday, January 31st for a special meeting, and again at 4 PM on Thursday, February 8th, 2024 for the regular meeting or at the call of the chair.
Thank you. A mover, please. Councillor Statham. Seconded, Councillor Navakis. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much.